All right, what is up, everybody? Dorian, D Boomasan, Biscuits, and Dean. Sound for Sound is here. It is October 9th, 2025, and we welcome you all. We got Rumble rolling, YouTube, and Substack. So we are live on all three of those platforms, and I'm really stoked for this one. I just wanted to say hi to Dean, let him say hi real quick, and then before I hand it over to Biscuits. We called this Cracked the Da Vinci Code and Killed the Illuminati by age 33. So, welcome, Dean. Say hi, and then maybe explain that a little bit.
Thank you very much for having me, Dorian,
Yeah, man.
and I appreciate the opportunity to share my story with everybody. So the reason why I say that it's the Da Vinci's Code and why I cracked the Da Vinci's Code is a lot of this stems from The Secret of Secrets by Dan Brown, who wrote the Da Vinci Code, and from the Mona Lisa and a lot of Da Vinci's greatest works, which I'll get into in a little bit. But the
Cool.
reason why I say we beat the Illuminati with this is because in World War II, whether or not you agree the side that won should have won, is you have this situation where the communication ciphers were cracked very early on in the war. And that's kind of what I was aiming out to do here with this, where I found communication methods that these people are using to hide in the broad of day that are replicable, testable processes that other people can then learn, investigate, and you will no longer be able to be lied to by politicians who don't want to discuss Epstein's flight logs and things of that nature.
Right, and I've been binge watching your stuff. I'm going to pass it over to Biscuits now, but I've seen this as I've never seen it. I've seen a lot of people doing gematria. I've seen a lot of people do various things with breaking down some of the symbology. I have not seen it quite as precise, maybe, or as detailed as some of the things that you do. You do reverse. What is that? Phonetics? Is that how you say it?
Phonetic reversal, yeah, it's more commonly known as backmasking, but a lot of people don't realize that that is not a practice that is only limited to the music industry. It's something that they do everywhere they go. They're religiously bound to this form of communication, and they're doing it because it's emulating a snake with a forked tongue.
Right. Right, and that's some of the stuff that I'm excited we're going to get into now. Biscuits turned me on to you. Biscuits had been following you longer and told me about Dean Sound for Sound and was excited about bringing you on. So I want to pass it over to Biscuits now. And Biscuits, you can just kind of explain how you found him and what you thought, and then we'll get rolling here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I dig through every website that I bother to be a part of, and Rumble is no exception. I mean, I've found a lot of frustrating things about Rumble in terms of the types of live streams that are available and the mechanisms by which live streams that are selected for get insane amounts of views and exposure, regardless really of the follower count. I mean, today is a perfect example. I saw a live stream that included like Space Shot 76 and Awakened Outlaw and some other goons that were on this guy's channel who's got less followers than Booma, but ended up getting 25, 30,000 views and having 5,000 people supposedly watching live just because, the Rumble landing page was dumping people into this stream. So when I look for interesting things to watch on Rumble, I'll click on the live tab and then go all the way to the end to see who's live streaming for nobody or for one or two people or something. And I mean, I've gone through a lot, but I found Dean's page and watched some of his live streams and realized that this fellow, well, I realized a few things, probably that we probably have been interacting on 4chan from time to time without really knowing it. But also that what he's done is essentially deciphered a certain an encryption algorithm that, or various encryption algorithms that are in practice used in the same way like the Enigma machine was used to communicate in a clandestine fashion that was obscured or completely impossible for the enemy to decipher. And I mean, with the Enigma machine, if you believe the mythos around it, in order to decipher it, there had to be a military operation to actually steal one of the Enigma machines, the mechanical um, algorithmic encrypting device. But Dean's brain is the Enigma machine on this one. Well, his brain, in combination with his passion and dedication to this one particular cause, which I think Dorian and myself and everybody that watches these shows, I hope, share. And that passion is to put an end to this industrialized exploitation of children for esoteric rituals, blood sacrifice. And in order to put a stop to it, everyone has got to be able to see it. And we've talked on this channel before about how I think 4chan was used to train certain AI programs to wipe the ClearNet clean of evidence, which you could also call child porn. And it's not that I think the ClearNet should have child porn on it, but when the majority of the world doesn't believe that this problem exists, it makes it easier for the people who are part of this problem to persist. And when you realize that this gentleman that you're going to hear from has had the Secret Service come to his house, and I suspect that, like myself, with my friends up at Eglin Air Force Base and wherever else these bastards are coming from, Dean has probably had a great deal of negative impacts on his life in general. I mean, I suspect that, like mine, his American dream ain't what it used to be, simply because he is passionate about something that puts him in opposition with the people that run this country and also run this international industrialized child exploitation racket. And I mean, I have and will continue to stake my life that this problem is real and that it's got to be addressed. And I think Dean I believe that the algorithms that he has developed for deciphering this stuff are legitimate. And I want everyone that can see it to see it for two reasons. One, because if the Secret Service goes to Dean's house, and he'll agree with me on this, they're either there because they're part of the problem or because they want to be part of the solution. And I want more people to be aware of Dean and what he's been doing, so that whatever happens, it will be clear which side of the fence those guys are on, because we all know which side of the fence they're supposed to be on. They're supposed to be part of the solution. I don't believe they have been thus far, but they still have an opportunity to do so going forward. And the more people that see Dean's work and understand what he's doing, the harder it will be for them to be on the wrong side of the fence without everyone knowing and understanding. And so I try to connect him and Dorian, because I love this channel. I love the audience. I love Dorian, and I feel like it would be a good collaboration, and I'm excited to see how it plays out. And I hope everybody will be patient, pay attention, and open their mind and try to understand what this gentleman is going to communicate to you, because I consider myself to be pretty discerning, and I think that it's compelling, and I think it's worth looking at.
I'm very grateful for the opportunity and that you did put me in touch with Dorian Biscuit. And I really appreciate you taking the time to make this visible. Sincerely.
Well, likewise, buddy. I appreciate. I've looked at your channel, and I've watched you a fair amount, and then I started interacting with you a little bit after I got a good idea of what was going on. But personally, I want you to know that I respect what you're doing, and it's a shame that not many people are watching your channel on Rumble, because there should be a lot more. It's compelling, and you deserve more attention than you're getting. That's for sure. You deserve good attention, not just federal goons sweating you and people people alienating you and for being interested in this stuff and for caring. It's not right. So,
well, I'm very grateful, for the opportunity and for everybody who's listening. this was not something. When I found out about Pizzagate in 2015, when I found out about that whole comic ping pong disaster in Washington D.C. and James Alphonsus, that was like that was a life changer for me, because it came to my understanding that we did in fact have a organized child trafficking network going on in the middle of the capital of the country, and the media, as well as everybody who listens to the most of the mainstream media, were all too happy to just let it go by the wayside, to the tune of now we're almost up to what, a decade. And it just when you see them pushing things like 9/11, kicking that can down the road, we still don't have answers. COVID, they wanted to cover it up for 70 years, right? I did not trust the government to be forthright and forthcoming when it came to something as severe and as serious as ritual sacrifice of children that we had clear evidence of going on in the Capitol. And that spurred on an entire decade-long investigation now into various communication methods that they've used. But in the last 6 months, that's where I really started making waves, I'd say. Because that's when they started reaching out to me to try to get me to cut a deal and to sign on, so to speak, which is never going to happen. I've told them many times it's not on the table. But
well, I can tell you they're hiring Secret Service agents right now in Florida like gangbusters, and you can get a $50,000 sign-on bonus because my burner email that I get all of my top secret security clearance job listings in order to catalog all these private military contractors and fuckheads that are down here in Florida hiring assholes left and right. I get Secret Service ones. I just got one the other day. So
maybe it'll be you showing up at my door then.
Yeah, I can assure you, sir, that it will not be me showing up at your door. Although I would love to apply just to see what would happen, to see if I could get an interview, because I've got a lot of shit I'd like to tell him. But I think
I did the same thing when I applied for Border Patrol. I said, hire me if you want to know about the Epstein Island child trafficking ring, because I can tell you all about it right on the resume.
Yeah, that's probably not going to get you an interview. It's not going to get you the interview you want anyway, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
It would be kind of fun to infiltrate them for once, though, because they fucking seem to infiltrate every damn thing that we have in society. Whether it's the churches, whether it's even the preschools, and unfortunately Chuck E. Cheese's and restaurants and all that kind of shit get taken over by these sick pedophiles, these Satanists, these people with their symbolism and their bullshit, Freemasonry, Illuminati kind of bullshit. So if you want, Dean, and you're ready to rock and roll, do you have? It looks like you have Epstein Island all ramped up on your screen. Are you ready to rock and roll with some?
We can start with this for sure.
Let's do this.
Before I get into all of the reflections and everything of that, I want to give a basic breakdown of this temple, because to me, when you think of warfare, you have to think about how you have to understand your enemy, right? The art of war. If you know yourself and you know your enemy, you're guaranteed victory. If you only know yourself but you don't know your enemy, it could be either way. And if you don't know either, you're guaranteed a loss. So for me, I needed to understand Jeffrey Epstein. And one of the most key aspects and one of the most avoided conversation topics about the man is that he was religiously devout. Nobody really understands that Jeffrey Epstein had this. He was a religiously devout person. He believed in a pantheon of beings. He was not a Christian. He was not a contemporary Jew, although he was Mossad. But he was not, it's not like this is your typical synagogue. This is not what you're looking at with this building. So the question became, all right, if it's not a synagogue, if it's not a church, if it's not a mosque, what is this building for? Which gods are worshipped at this temple? Because a temple, by definition, is a place of religious worship. So the man was so religiously devout that he built a private temple on his private island that pedophiles the world over pilgrimage to pay homage to these specific gods. And it's a matter of what gods did Jeffrey Epstein worship? And why can nobody in the media, nobody in government, nobody seems to have an answer or even want to ask this question? It's like it's avoided like a plague. So that was a red flag to me, and I started looking into it. Now I'm going to give a little bit of a breakdown on this temple, and if I go too quickly, I apologize. I'm going to try to keep it slow. But the first thing to note about this temple is there's a golden woman on the top of it, and the woman is standing atop of a white cube, and the white cube is at the top of a red ladder, and the red ladder is the same color as the repeating patterns in front of the temple. Now, you can't really see them great from this angle, but this red 0 pattern here is like a mirror facing itself. It's supposed to be a representation of the infinite. When you see the snake pattern next to it, it's both a snake and a labyrinth. And this gives us a hint into a specific mythos, because when you think of the labyrinth and you think of Greco-Roman mythology, you'll consider the Minotaur. And when we think of the bull-headed man, you'll think of Moloch, because that's a deity that is known to be represented as both an owl in Bohemian Grove or as a bull-headed man.
Do you have a picture of a Minotaur?
I have Moloch right here, actually. So this is...
yeah, we can look at something like that.
So this is Ishtar, and this is Moloch, right? Now, you'll see Ishtar has owls and lions next to her. Ishtar was known as the goddess of love and war from Babylon. She was a goddess of whores. This is why Jeffrey Epstein was a pimp, and this is, in fact, the woman who is standing on top of the ladder. She was known for love because to Freemasons, love is a matter of perspective, and we'll get into that in a moment. The main thing I want to point out about both of these is that they're doing this W formation where they have their palms out in a W. And here you can see she's got one arm in white and the other is in like a darker, like gray. This isn't just because of wear and tear. This is because this is the dualities of good and evil, peace and war. Ishtar, right? Ishtar. When you think of the Easter Bunny, most people don't know, why is there a white rabbit? What does that have to do with the resurrection of Jesus Christ? And the truth is, it has nothing to do with the resurrection of Jesus Christ. It has to do with Ishtar and how back in those times, they would paint the eggs with menstrual blood of the whores. As disgusting as that is, that's where the tradition stems from. So when we come over to this, you'll see Moloch. And he's the only other thing to point out about Moloch is he's got 7 chambers on his furnace, and he's got an arrow pointing down. Okay. Moloch was known for sacrificing your firstborn to the flame. And one of the common themes of this temple, and a common theme along the pantheon that they worship, is that they believe that by sacrificing the youth, they can prolong their own life. You're going to see that be a common theme of the different deities that are mentioned today, one of which is like Saturn. People may recognize this red and white fixture here. But to bring us...
Real quick, Dean, can you say what the W represents that they're doing when they have the pictures like that?
So, to me, the W, I'm not sure necessarily... Well... One reason they do the W is because when you flip it, it makes the Norse rune. Another reason that they do it is because when you reflect it, it's 2 V's. So it's like 5 and 5 is 10. So it's a matter of God's perfection number is 10. There's a lot of different ways you can slice it up. But
right. There's usually multiple meanings to about everything they do, right?
Yeah.
Like Biscuits put in there, if you invert it, it's an M. Could stand for masonry.
Yes.
The Masons.
Absolutely, and that is one that we'll see actually right over here on Epstein's temple in a minute. But the thing is, it's not necessarily why the W. The W is a reference to the Moloch and the Ishtar doing this pose, or the Baphomet when you cut it and you reflect it into the left as an alchemist would. But I think I have that one over here. Yeah, so like the Baphomet where he's got the W going on. If you know as an alchemist to cut the Baphomet in half and reflect him at himself, you get another W. But that's another thing we'll get into.
Okay.
I'd like to draw people's attention to this Freemason board real quick, because before we jump off of Ishtar, so a lot of this comes from Aleister Crowley. A lot of the things that they learned were from Crowley and the Order of Thelma, particularly about like the combination of opposites and the combination of different energies. So for this, you have east where north should be, because you're facing the east, and this is a reference to East Star, Ishtar. When you have the masculine energy here in the sun, the feminine energy here in the moon, and you'll note these are all 6-pointed stars, it looks like, but it's the combination of these two is where you find the Eye of Providence. And the Eye of Providence is like the Eye of Horus. It's the eye from Epstein's temple. It's the eye that's on... Oop. My apologies.
You're good.
It's the eye from the temple. It's the eye from that's on your dollar. Everybody knows the dollar bill.
Yep.
But when you look at this black and white is for the dualities of good and evil, right? And most people would understand that much. They may even know this is the pillar of Joaz and Ba-Chin or something. Jachin, Boaz and Jachin.
Yeah.
Which is,
Can I make a quick point about that too? Because I think, if you think about I always think about this, the two pillars, Boaz and Joachim or whatever. When you think about the two towers of 9/11 falling in a human sacrifice ritual, and then a single tower being erected beneath them, in the context of this Masonic pasteboard here, it's the same sort of theme, right? Where the masculine and the feminine energy are destroyed, and you end up with just this one unified sort of androgynous energy in the middle, which is right in line with the religion of the people that did that ritual. And
a lot of people have correctly theorized that 9/11 is a form of an occult ritual, but it's one of those things where it's like, for example, why did one of those buildings have an antenna and the other one didn't, right? It was because it was supposed to be a representation of the masculine and the feminine. But with these, the thing about this, this is the first degree Freemason trace board. And the reason why this is the first degree is because they're telling you with this a lot of things. Now, to preface, Freemasons will never tell you directly what they are doing. They are bound by oaths of silence not to. So to trust a Freemason to teach you about this board, it would be like to trust a Jew to teach you about the Talmud. That's not really a reasonable expectation when they're under threat of death if they were to do so. So we have to kind of figure it out for ourselves. Now, they'll say this is Jacob's ladder, but that's an act of blasphemy. This is a ladder that to them represents ascension to godhood. And in order to understand this, this ladder, you have to understand color inversions. This is the easiest aspect of the Da Vinci's code to understand, because what you're getting into is, everybody knows black and white are opposites, right? That's a color inversion. It's an opposite. When you look at this person, they're dressed in blue and white blue and yellow at the bottom of the ladder, and they're between two white cubes. So what they're telling you here is, if you want to start climbing this ladder, you have to understand color inversions, because blue and yellow are color inversions of each other. When you continue up the ladder, you find somebody dressed in green and pink. To a Freemason, people may be familiar with twin pine. That is a reference to the evergreen, or Hillary Clinton's her Secret Service tag, right? Evergreen. And that is because you'll see the key is tied to pink and the pink is tied to green, because the key to everlasting life has to do with sex and fertility, because that's what pink means to a Freemason. So you have green being everlasting life, pink being sex and fertility. And at the top of the ladder, you have a woman dressed in gold with a white hood, and she's surrounded by naked children hugging her. This tells us that to a Freemason, love is a matter of perspective. And to them, Good and evil are a matter of perspective. What is good to some is evil to others. What is evil to others is good to some. And this white cube, if we're going along the motif of color inversions, right, directly beneath the woman, directly beneath the key, you have a white cube with a black goblet on it. Because to them, this is the demonic act, or to us, it's the demonic act of drinking the blood of children after raping them. To them, it's the angelic act of sitting atop the black cube of Saturn and receiving life everlasting. That's what this board represents. And these themes, these motifs, all continue right on to Jeffrey Epstein's temple. When you invert this image, you'll get the same color inversions as from Jeffrey Epstein's temple. So when we go back to the temple, now that we have a slight understanding about the color inversions, we're looking at this temple again. The red and white labyrinth are the colors of Saturn. That's why we had this one over here to show from Greco-Roman times, before the black cube was very popular, it was red and white. Even in photos like this, it's red, white, red and white. And it's all about, again, ritually sacrificing children in pursuit of everlasting life. So when we invert this image, now it becomes a black labyrinth where you have this anti-light blue that you use to navigate the infinite void of death. And you have, if you want to climb this ladder and stand atop the cube the way that Ishtar does, if you want to emulate the goddess at the top of the temple, you have to make ritual sacrifice of children. That is their belief. Now, the things that we should note about this, the cube itself, if we count it, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 stripes on the temple. To people who are familiar with the occult, you may be familiar with John Podesta and his I'm sorry, I didn't pull this image up earlier, but this image of John Podesta smirking, right, where he's got 14 on one hand and a fish on the other. This is a reference to the 14 parts of Osiris mythos. And the Osiris mythos goes that Set defeated his brother and chopped him up into 14 parts. His wife, Isis, salvaged 13 of those parts, but she could not find his phallus. So she fashioned him one made out of gold. Okay? So when we see the golden woman and when we see this cube goes from being blue and white to black and gold, we now understand this is a black cube of Saturn gilded in the stripes of Osiris gold. So now they're telling you that this is a temple about reincarnation or sacrificing the youth. Yes, his phallus was eaten by a fish. And then basically she fashioned him one out of gold. And that's, again, to Aleister Crowley, sex, magic, fertility into everlasting life. That's why they enjoy that mythos. They will use any mythos if it lines up with these ideals. For example, they use... You got a question?
Oh, no, I'll just wave into someone that entered, man. This is freaking awesome. You're doing great.
So one of the things that I try to explain about this temple is a lot of the gods that they worship here are used very interchangeably. For example, Saturn and Kronos from Greco-Roman mythology, people would be familiar with, but they may not know that they also use Moloch for the same symbolism because they fill the same religious intent, where they're sacrificing their youth to prolong their own rule. Shani from Hindu mythology is one probably people have never heard of, but Shani is a representation of Saturn. So because they worship Saturn, they also worship Shani. Now, this black cube reference is one we see all over the world. They use this. I use this example, and I know a lot of people may get sensitive about it, but the Jews putting the Teflon on their head means two different things to two different groups of people. And this is an act of devotion to Saturn. Just as circumambulation around the cube in Mecca is a form of worship to Saturn. Now, an average Muslim or an average Jew may not agree with that, But to the people in those groups, like Shabbat Synagogue in the basements, in the sewers of New York City in 2024, or Tab Lahore in Guatemala, that is most certainly what that means to them. And when we look at the Israeli flag, sure enough, this star of Remphan on the tabernacle of Moloch reveals to you a black cube at the center of this six-pointed star, the hexagram. And just like with this, when you invert the Kaaba, which is meant to worship Allah, it becomes the blue and white from the Jewish flag, because it's actually Kaaba plus Allah is Kabbalah, and it becomes Jewish mysticism.
Wow.
Now, before we get into the mirror game and stuff, I just want to make sure that I reference these. This archway is an arch of Janus, who was a god of time in Greco-Roman times, is particularly from Rome. And Janus was known to have the two faces. He was known for sometimes depicted with three, but it's all about opposites and dualities. Like the example I use is from theater. You have the tragedy and the comedy masks. That's one that he is known for. Or McDonald's arches. The golden arches on McDonald's are actually arches of Janus. And that's why they do an M. It's not just for McDonald's. And here, instead of them continuing with this theme, it becomes a grid pattern because it's a black grid of Saturn. So you find, again, like the green from the palm trees becomes the pink. And the reason they like the palm trees are because they make arrows of the infinite. I'm going to pull up an image that I have of Moloch real quick. Here. So this is another image from Moloch. You may not be able to find some of the images that I talk about tonight without really looking for them, but this comes from a guy who was posting on Reddit, actually, and he was posting about Moloch and Yam, and wouldn't it be just so neato if we could worship Moloch and Yam in the modern age? They just look so cool. But what it was like a guy who has a fetish and is trying to talk about his fetish without actually acknowledging that he has it, and because this dude was a real worshiper.
And that was if you go back to that picture, that's like a furnace underneath them, right?
It is, because Moloch was known to have the flames where you put the child to burn them alive as an offering. And the reason
so they bring the offering and then just goes right underneath a throne where they get burned up for the offering.
Yeah, and my thing about this is there is no reason why the Roman Catholic Church needs to put a golden statue of Moloch out in front of the Colosseum. There's no reason for them to do that. It's entirely inappropriate, even if it's as a matter of historical accuracy. And the thing about this image of Moloch that I found so interesting is that this gives us hints that Moloch is, in fact, worshipped in the same way as Saturn is. You can already see the coloration on his robe. Just like Epstein's temple, how it inverts from blue and white to black and gold. He's depicted black and gold because to most people, Moloch is a demon. To them, he's an angel that brings them everlasting life. And the red becomes that same anti-light blue because this is who they're sacrificing the blood to. This is how they appease this minotaur to make it through the labyrinth. And you have here the rings of Saturn, half of a crescent, or a crescent because it's half a circle, and these, which are arrows, which again, just like over here on the chest, you got the arrow pointing down. These arrows are pointing to the left and to the right, because when you take these arrows and you mirror them at themselves, you get an hourglass. And this is a religious signal to them because they worship deities of time and fertility. When you reflect them away from themselves, you get a quadrigram, which is a four-pointed star. This also stems from the Baphomet. And when you flick the horns at itself, which I'll do later. But
and that's why they like the palm trees as well, because it's like those arrows.
This is why they like palm trees. It's why they like pine trees. It's why they like any plant that does that arrow with its leaves, or with its needles. It's a matter of arrows of the infinite, and because it's green, it's a representation of everlasting life because it inverts from green and pink. So what we have here, now we're going to get into the reflection aspect of this. When we reflected this image at itself, I noticed, first of all, you have two giant eyes of Providence sitting here on this image. That is a dead giveaway that Freemasons frequented this temple. As you look at this, you have the M for Moloch, Mason, Magi, for a number of things this could mean. W, because it's, again, with the Ishtar and Moloch, how they do a W. But this is also something people probably don't usually see. You have a 3, and you have a 3 in a mirror.
Yep.
So that becomes 33, and it's surrounded by 2 figure 8s. Here and here on the edge of the eye. This comes back to infinite worship. When you go up and down this mirror's edge, you're going to find totems of demons, like actual like demonic effigies that they've kind of left hidden in the images. And right at the top there's a small but white bull, because that's a reference to the Bull of Gilgamesh and Ishtar. So when you'll see like a figure 8 here, a figure 8 here. It's one of their favorite symbols, because all of this comes back to worshiping these beings in pursuit of the infinite. You have like a pyramid here, and it has an eyeball at the top of it. You will find most of the images of the temple do this kind. Any of the photography taken by mainstream media, almost all of it does this in some form or another.
Right. They've gotten really good at this. There's a lot of photos that you've shown me where it's like, at first glance, it's like, that's a horrible photo. But if you knew what they were really doing,
yeah,
when you're like flipping these things, moving them horizontal, lining them up, and the things that they actually create with their dimensions, the way that they line them up, and the way that their language works, it's a completely different reality they live in, and they see that we don't see unless you learn this stuff the Dean is teaching you here.
And that's kind of a lot of how they get away with this. I always say they use ambiguity as a skin shift. It's like as a camouflage. But this temple, in my opinion, is most certainly a temple to Ishtar, Moloch, Saturn, and probably a few others like Janus. All of the symbols are there, the infinite, the labyrinth, the colorations. And the big thing about this is she's standing on top of the white cube, because when you invert it, it becomes the black cube of Saturn. And that's their way of saying she's standing atop the cube of death. She has eternal life, and she will give it to you if you climb the ladder the way she tells you to. Now, when we look at the Baphomet, that's not a great image of it because I've shrunk it down, so I'm just going to pull up a fresh one. But when we look up the Baphomet is also sitting on top of a white cube. And I think that's worth mentioning, because the white cube is a symbol that they seem to use quite frequently. But if you were to take images where you find them, like this one I know does it, you could flip this image at itself and you will make more satanic imagery. This one probably does it because it's got the fertility from the green on one side and then the barren on the other, because it's drying, like dried out grass. Dualities, things opposites, things like that are the bread and butter of these people. And that's why the Baphomet is a transgender. The Baphomet does solve and coagula because the Baphomet itself is an alchemical puzzle. And that's what a lot of people don't realize, that this is an act of alchemy, a lot of this. It's the matter of breaking down an image and recreating it into something new. So before I said that the Baphomet's horns touching make a quadrigram, right? If you look at the Baphomet, he's got his head slightly slanted to the left. It is not directly looking at you. This horn is a little bit higher than this horn. And that's because you're supposed to take it from horn to horn, and I usually take it about halfway down the star. You copy it, and then you flip it at itself. And when you flip it at itself, now you have a quadrigram. Now you have an eyeball with an hourglass for an iris. Right? So it's things like, most people, when they think of Baphomet, they think pentagram. They don't think quadrigram. But knowing that the quadrigram is a symbol they use changes the meaning of a song like Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, which is a song about both LSD and how they use LSD to communicate with these entities, or so they believe. So,
Dean, can you show the Baphomet how you split that image and use the mirroring algorithm on it to alchemically correct it, essentially?
So the way that it works is the Baphomet has two sides to him, and I'm going to talk a bit about this when I get into the Da Vinci's Code as well. There's a light side to his face, and there's a dark side to his face, right? That is a hint that they use all the time. I've caught Jay-Z and Beyonce using this on their song Ape Shit, where they put the Mona Lisa in the background and they're dressed in green and pink. And it's to tell you, if you cut the Baphomet in half, I'm going to cover up some of these pictures of Saturn because I think I made my point on that. But when you cut it in half, now the horns are even and he's doing the W and it's a solve. Or on this end, and this is the one we're going to talk a lot about tonight, is, again, coagula. What does coagula mean? Coagula means blood. So when we're talking about a blood solution or a blood sacrifice, that's when you get the Baphomet now with his dark face, right? And you'll notice it's two blood moons now he's pointing down at. This is just like at Comet Ping Pong, how he had the even if we look at the Comet Ping Pong sign, right? If you look at Comet Ping Pong sign, it's the Baphomet, the Baphomet, the Baphomet, the Baphomet, but notice yellow and blue are opposite each other. Green and pink are opposite each other because these are color inversions of each other. You see what I'm saying?
I've heard so many people break this down and look at it. I've never seen it like this. This is amazing.
That's because now it's yellow, blue, and this is like a purplish pink to a green. Because depending on the shade of green, it'll come out as purple. But it's a matter of knowing the color inversions and what they mean to these people. It's an entirely different language. The one thing about the Baphomet that I'm going to bring up so that I don't lose it, as long as we're here. So this is Little St. James Island. Now, we've already talked about the Baphomet and what that means to have it pointing fingers down, which is to have it with the arms down being the blood sacrifice. This is actually an act of sacred geometry that most people would never know to look for. If you use this ramp as an indicator line, as a marker, because it's at a slant, you can take this and cut the island in half. It's a little bit tight. I'm going to do a better cut. You'd think after doing this for 6 months, I'd be better at this, but I'm not I'm not an image editor.
You're good, man.
But when you take the Baphomet or the island rather, and then you flip it at itself, you will have yourself a fancy looking little Baphomet there with an entire totem of demons going up and down the island. And again, now these are the legs crossed. He's sitting on a cube. The fingers are pointing down, and it's at the center. I didn't line this up perfectly, but it's either a figure eight or it's a sun on there. It's a face of a sun because Lucifer wants to appear as a light bringer. That's why they call themselves the Illuminated, the Illuminati, because they were given the light by him. That is what they believe. So this, and it's not just this island that does it. I'm going to show, this is right next to Little St. James. This is Dog Island. Right here, if you cut this island in half, this is again a reference to Moloch.
Any idea who owns this one?
I have no clue. I wish, that's something I probably should have thought to look up. But when you look, you'll see things like this, where this is like a demon face here. Eye, nose, it's a mouth, right? they're hiding images all over Google Maps to this effect, and now it looks like Malak with his arms in the air. In fact, if we were to just take Malak's head here and stick it right here, you got yourself a Malak. You know, it's the same concept with this.
Right. Dog Island is owned by the U.S. Virgin Islands government.
So there's a lot of military bases and things like that where we're not going to be aware of what goes on these locations. But the main reason I bring up Dog Island is because this is Dog Rocks. And if you could pull up that audio real quick that I sent you, Dorian, so your audience can hear it.
Yeah, which one is it?
It's Scar God. Dog Rocks is an example. It's our first example of a phonetic reversal that they're using right next to Jeffrey Epstein's Island as an indication that there's a puzzle solved here. So I'd like to share that with you.
To clarify, I'm not saying this as a form of blasphemy, but as a form of evidence. Dog rocks. Scar goes. Dog rocks. Scar goes. Scar God. Dog rocks. Scar God. Dog rocks.
So the reason why I did it both ways is because a lot of people, when they go to do a phonetic reversal, they just say what they think the phonetic reversal is. How do you prove a phonetic reversal? You have to say what you think it is backwards and make it flip to say what it's supposed to say forwards. So this is telling us that there is an indication of religious behavior here because Scar God, right? Like, what does that mean to Scar God? And when we look at this, this is half of a face. This is a commonly used theme that you're going to find them doing, just like we're talking a lot about tonight, where they reflect these faces at themselves. And now you have a demon with an all-seeing eye in between his nose, where this is eye, this is a mouth, and then there's the horn sticking up. I've got 3 different examples. Somebody just said they're having maps within the maps. So my story about how I came to all of this brings us over to here. Now, this is in Quebec, Canada. 6 months ago, I was browsing Google Maps, reminiscing, talking about when I go to heaven, I want to explore heaven because I didn't really get to explore Earth as much as I feel like I could have. I've been to nearly every state. I've been out of the country, but I didn't get to see enough of the world that God made. And as I was scrolling around, I noticed this location called Illuminati. And I said to myself, Illuminati sounds a lot like Illuminati. That's kind of weird. So I scrolled in and took a look. And the first thing I noticed was this is satellite imagery and this is a censorship pattern. I said, that is incredibly strange that this is right next to Lake Illuminati, right? So what Illuminati translates to is from Illuminatir. And from Illuminatir translates to from the illuminated. When you look at this, you'll note there's a figure 8 in the shape of a ball sack. It's attached to a phallus because, again, it's about sex and fertility and to everlasting life. And the phallus is a triangle with an eyeball in it. That in itself is concerning. But then when you come over here, just like at Dog Rocks, you have them doing this, where this becomes a smiling man. Now, I found this shortly after I discovered that mirror gimmicks are something they do frequently. We've all heard about the papal throne, probably. I'll look it up real quick. But the papal throne mirrored, where it becomes this demonic-looking entity, where this is Lom from Aleister Crowley, and this is in the papal throne room, which is in the giant. It's in a building that's in the shape of a snake head, right? Like that's concerning. Not to insult any Catholics in the chat. I'm just trying to give you this is occultism, and it should be called out. You have like the X logoed mirrored, right? People noticed that when Elon Musk bought X, he made this the Freemason diamond, right? Like that's concerning. The cursed portrait of King Charles, right? Most people are aware that they do hide things in the mirror. I mean, even when they had that famous Rothschild masquerade, the invitation had to be flipped in a mirror. Where you couldn't read it forward. You had to put the text in a mirror so that you could understand where to go and when to go there. So that's, and just some of the things you see from this party are, very weird. Things like this where, they're wearing the goat mask and stuff like that. But it was a Satanist party. They literally set a seat at the table for Lucifer, from my understanding, at that event. So when we looked at this smiling face, knowing that this is something they did, I said, that's strange. These eyebrows are pointing, right? So I zoomed in. I said, oh, wow, they're pointing directly at a rock that looks like it's in the shape of a face, kind of like something out of an Egyptian mythos, right? Eyeball, nose, mouth, and he's looking to the left. So your inclination is going to be go to the left. And now you're in an entire maze game hidden on Google Maps in several different locations where this is an infinite grid of Saturn. These are the black cubes of Saturn. And you have to learn that all of these, down to the smallest white line, are active tunnels in this maze. I don't know if these are physical tunnels or if they are just here as digital prop. But I will tell you, when I first entered this location, you could not just zoom in. You couldn't just do that and be into the maze. You had to enter from specific locations. You could jump out anywhere, but there were only specific spots that let you enter. Now, when you
Can you go anywhere now on Google Earth and go to that maze?
No. Like, it doesn't work.
Right. Here. So people need to understand that like you're entering into something that they've created with this. And then it's also just so people look at that image and see how different it is when it's really clear on the right there as a satellite image, and then they've censored and they've created a distinct line where he got that face. There's various things that are pointing him, Dean, and his work to how he deciphers this and figures out their game, how they are communicating, what this is actually here for the people that are illuminated.
Yeah, and it's a mini game to them, and the prize to this mini game, if you play it correctly, is to step up in the cult and to become a child trafficker and to do all the nasty things they do. Now, when I ran this maze, it took me, I think, something like 3.5 hours the first time to figure it out. But the trick is that there's different light. Like, it's not pure black, it's not pure white, there's shades of gray, and some spots are lit up heavier than others. The flicker rate changes. But I've only found one location specifically designed to be found in the maze, and that is level 900. I am sure there are others. I just have only found this one. So when we get to level 900, this was a location to me. The first thing that I saw was there was a little boy that they've removed the video of. I have it on my Rumble somewhere, but there was a boy that was here that was blacked out in black and white. And it was like a 20-second clip of him just sitting there smiling, posted by a man named David Miller. And when I started looking and considering where this location is, how you have to find this location, if the first thing you see is a video of a kid that looks like he's been portrayed as some kind of demonic entity, that's a little concerning.
Right.
But things that people are familiar with are like the skull and bones. They may not be familiar with this entity here, but again, there's an evergreen here, and all of these lines are at slants. That's important to them. As you continue down the photography here, you'll find somebody climbing a staircase, climbing a ladder, the black grid of Saturn. The building is at a slant, right? And the Saturn's grid pattern is reflecting the clouds in the sky because it's their way of saying Saturn controls heaven and earth. This is, again, a joke about how they have everybody living this fake reality. And right here, there you have him. He's literally, this is a bull on top of a grid pattern world with a labyrinth within the world. This is most certainly a reference to Moloch and Ishtar. It's blue and white with black and gold because these are the color inversions. And then right in the front here, it's the red and white because to most people, this is do not enter. To them, this is labyrinth. This is telling you, just like in front of Epstein's temple, that this is one of their locations. And if you know, you're supposed to flip the image. Now, when we look at the reviews for this location, you'll find things like David Greco. He said it's fake but good, right? What does that even mean? When you click, now I can't tell if this is a kid or not, but to me, this was concerning. He posted a picture of what appears to be a kid who is not happy with what's going on. They've got their arms crossed. He's got milk and Coca-Cola. The reason I bring this image up is because on the pedophile code sheet, this is another image that was posted at level 900 that they've since deleted. Right
that
there.
That was posted at that. See, this is what happens when guys like Dean or somebody figures this shit out. They start changing their ways. When people started figuring out that they were like pushing kids through like Wayfair and some of these companies, then they start changing their tactics. But this picture you found at level 900?
This was a picture I found posted by a person named Dispa at level 900. There's a lot of things we can draw away from this image, and I'm going to just take a minute to break it down. So, again, I'm not saying every single person who eats chicken nuggets is a pedophile. Not every single person who enjoys a glass of milk thinks of it the way that these people do. We have to understand when we look at a lot of these symbols, it's a matter of the parable of the blind man and the elephant. All right? They have two different meanings to two different people. And when you look at this image from an innocent perspective, this could just be a meme. But when you look at it with the understanding that these are code languages to these people, it changes it entirely. So, for example, watermelon, he's wearing a black hat, right? And we've already talked about black and white being in inversions of each other. Watermelon, pink on the inside, green on the outside. When you invert it, it becomes pink on the outside, green on the inside, right? When you see Dr. Pizza, people may remember he was one of the most outspoken critics of anybody investigating Pizzagate when it broke. He was a very big fan of vanilla Coca-Cola, and he would post it all the time on his social media talking about things like the worst part about pet ownership, and then taking, about basically what he was talking about was taking his slaves to the dentist after they bit him during service. And he only got arrested for molesting an 11-year-old and a 9-year-old, but he's guilty of a lot more. The hot dogs from Obama's hot dog party. Chicken from Chicken Lover and James Alphonsus, and that's for boy loving. The Luciferians, like the Satanists, they pour milk on themselves out in the streets of Washington, D.C. as a representation of getting cummed on. But this is more to me and to the people who are actual Luciferians. This is about that black goop, that venom, that demonic possession reference that people like Greta Thunberg, when she took that oil over one eye, that famous photo of her with that. That's the reference with that. Now, burgers, I'm not sure about. I don't know about toilet paper or bread. Pizza is a reference to child pornography. CP for cheese pizza. Pepperoni is probably a variation of that. Coca-Cola, because the can is red and white, right? It's the colors of Saturn. And peanut, probably smaller infant babies, or the only other reference I can think of is like walnut sauce.
Yep.
As for sushi, I think that's probably has to do with Asian kids. The most concerning thing about this image, though, is that the world itself is there in the center, and it's telling you that a sex cult of Saturn and Ishtar control the world, because that's the coloration. The Pringles can is here to tell you that you're supposed to flip the image, that you're supposed to rotate it. And the palm tree, like we discussed before, is for those arrows of the infinite. So it's one of those things where having him have both Coca-Cola and milk right next to each other, the eggs for chicken, the white bread, right? There's half a slice of white bread here. Now, suddenly, this becomes more concerning, where on the surface, this image probably wouldn't mean anything to anybody outside of the fact we found it in a maze of Moloch.
Right. I look at that picture and I'm like, why the heck did they even post that? It's stupid.
Yeah, and it's because he's leaving a review where it wasn't that they didn't get serviced. They ordered something with that child, and the child was provided, but the child did not fulfill what he paid for, so he was writing a complaint to the people who run this location about how the kid didn't do what they were supposed to. This person says, but the place is slanted, and that's very important, because slanted imagery, when they slant, anything that's like asymmetrical, that is an image indicator to them about how to find their imagery. A lot of the photos we're going to be discussing, when you see them, it's going to be taken from a slant, because that's what they do. This is the back rooms. Now, to people who are more modern in the younger crowds, they'll know the back rooms are like about a glitch in the world where you fall through reality and you're like being chased by a demon or something in these back rooms, right?
Right.
And that's a reference they use all the time. But now here's DSPA, and they were the person who posted that pedophile code sheet, right? So when we click them, they called this place level 944. When you see level 944 as Matiosi, that's level 900, they also posted from a place called Kitty Pink House, and they call Kitty Pink House level 974. So I said, well, if it's a higher level, that means it's probably worse, right? I clicked it, and sure enough,
And
right,
can you blow that up? That
yes,
image?
absolutely. But what I want to show people real quick, if you can see, it's Moo 33 down here, right next to Moo 33. And this can be read in two different ways. It's M00 for the infinite, or it's, like I said, Moo 33. And M being for Mason or Moloch. Now, when we look at this image, the main thing to draw about this image is understanding the coloration game. Now, it's Kitty Pink House because a kitty, instead of an adult cat, it's a child cat, right? And it's a demon. It's a tall black demon here because to most people, the act of having sex with a girl or a little girl in pursuit of everlasting life is an abominable act. To them, this is the angelic act of receiving everlasting life, right? So, and yes, a lot of people, the tall black man could be a reference to Moloch. Absolutely. Another person who does this exact imagery but is not related to level 900 is somebody I called Nadia Wilson. And in their profile picture, they're doing the arrows of Moloch, but when you pull it up, you'll know it's the same styled imagery in two completely different locations, unrelated to each other. And in this one, they even have it green, white, black, pink. It's all right there, right? And it does the same gimmick because to them in the know, they're not talking about Stray Kids, the K-pop band. They're talking about sex with kids for everlasting life. That's why he's wearing the red shoes too.
Do you know when that picture was posted? The kitty one?
This one?
That one?
It
Yeah,
says
like around the time.
It says December of 2024, but the problem is these photos get shifted up frequently, and I'm not sure that I trust these dates, to be honest. Because
because when we were talking on the Zoom that we had before we did this live, we were just meeting for the first time. That figure looks like what the kids call Slender Man, which allegedly started in 2009, but it became something that was a meme, but it was also something that was legitimately like being experienced by a lot of children at night in their dreams or in their nightmares or when they were trying to sleep, is that this dark slender man figure was coming to them. Very fucking scary.
So, and again, it's because this is a demonic entity. This is to them. It's like when you go to a church and you see images of angels, right? It's the exact same concept. No, there's not literally a demon standing in that doorway, but to them, it's about the representation of what this image means to them, less than the actual act of it. Now, Nadia Wilson and Dispa have one more thing in common, and that is that they both do this. This is an unknown place puzzle, I call it. When you find somebody on Google Maps posting from an unknown place, if they are doing this puzzle, because not every unknown place does this, but you'll note on the street view, it looks like a forked, windy road in the middle of the ocean, right? One thing you will note about this image is it's a cat. She's got pink and green dualities. These cheeks are things that you see frequently. Her head is at a slant, right? Just like the Baphomet, we said her head's slightly at a slant. And then it's a top hat because that's where you pull the rabbit out of. But when you X out of this, it drops you off in this corner of the world. And it drops you off in this corner of the world because when you zoom in on this rock is at 0, 0. And you can even kind of see it. This doesn't line up correctly. There's a quadrant here and there's a puzzle here. But when you zoom in, and underneath the ocean, it is much easier to enter into the maze I found. But this is supposed to be 0, 0, 0.00. All right, you see how it's 0 all the way across? That's because this is a reference to the infinite for them. And this is, again, a separate maze that they're having at the bottom of the ocean on Google Maps, only on the desktop version of the app, mind you. It's not on the mobile version, where you're supposed to run this maze. And when you do, it brings you out to Cat Hill, which is, again, a reference to Kitty Pink House. And Cat Hill is in St. Helena Ascension. And it's on Ascension Island. Now, the one thing before I move into Ascension Island, which is what I call Little St. James Part 2, I'd just like to show Dispa also does the same puzzle. If you go to her photos, she's posting an unknown place about the back rooms. This is a visual depiction of what most people would see as the back rooms. And if you look on the bottom here, this is, again, the same kind of windy road reference. And then when you X out of it, it brings you in the same corner of the world. A third person that I will show that does this comes from here. This is Natalia P. There's a lot of images this person has posted. Some of them I will not get into because I promised I wouldn't. But this is, again, an unknown place puzzle where they're dropping you, a very solid hint with the blue and yellow, the pink and green. There's a dude in his underwear on the couch. And they posted about 3 different older men, it looks like, just standing around in their underwear all over Google Maps. But when you X out of this, hers drops you off literally in the rock. When you zoom it out, you're in the rock already. So not all of them are going to do this. A lot of them have you zoomed out. When I first found Dispa and Nadia Wilson, they were zoomed in closer. But because I kept talking about them on my Rumble, they started zooming it out to kind of camouflage and cover their intent so that only people who knew about the infinite would know that this is something that they do. Now, I don't want to get into all of this, but this boy is one of my favorite people in the world. He's a hero. And he's somebody who's dropping hints to try to get people to be aware of this. And he's one of the people that I am fighting for by trying to draw awareness to this investigation.
Right. And then can we just slow down just a little bit for a second here?
Absolutely.
That is the passion behind this. This is one of the reasons I got into what is called, I guess, still the truther movement, which I have found to be the liar, liar, pants on fire movement, because we started off mostly, we started off with a bunch of things, but Epstein Island, Q, and the things that I did get sucked into. They did talk about a lot of things that were very true. We talked a lot more about Isaac Cappy in the Zoom and some of the things that he was disclosing. Now, maybe he got a little bit hoodwinked with some certain psyops, and people infiltrated him and sold him some BS crap that unfortunately led to his demise. But this is the reason that we got into this, is to save these kids and to stop this bullshit and to expose these sick, satanic pedophiles that are running this fucking world, or at least in charge of a lot of it. And so you think about something like Google Earth, but Google 666, a behemoth. They own YouTube. We're on YouTube right now. They have this Google Earth set up. You would think for the convenience of people to, find locations, get directions, look at sites. There's more going on here, and that's what Dean is exposing. And not a lot of people know about this aspect of things. But you click onto certain locations, there are images connected to those locations. The images tell a story, and there's reasons for this. And then you've seen him go into what he calls the maze, where you get pulled in. You can't just go anywhere on Google Earth and go into that maze. There's a reason you can get into that maze in certain locations. It's because it's part of the game. It's part of the language that these people know about. And it leads you often to areas where you can feel safe as a predator, as a pedophile, because you know you can connect there and it's your fucking people. It's gross.
Can I yes, absolutely, D. And I want to interject something too, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
With respect to Isaac Cappy and the path that I think he tried to take, which was to get a bolus of data or evidence regarding certain people that are participating in what is a much more broad network of child exploitation and esoteric practices. The network that he was trying to expose, the network at large, not just the people, the individuals that he was trying to expose, is a network that is built on its ability to hide and to deal with with small exposures, with individuals that get burned, so to speak. I mean, P. Diddy, Tom Hanks, in a way, Kevin Spacey, right? These are people that got exposed and got burned, but their individual downfall was firewalled essentially off from the grand operation, right? The grand operation is built to deal with individuals getting exposed. And so maybe that's not the best path. Maybe it's not the best way to attack this enemy in a way that they are accustomed and well equipped to deal with. And what Dean is doing, what he has been doing, is demystifying the algorithms that they use to obscure their communications. And their communications are everywhere. Every system, every piece of media, everything is curated and manipulated and manicured by these same individuals, by these same organizations and this same sort of global institution. And so that's why
you're breaking up there a little bit.
Tools. Sorry, I say this is why I think what Dean is doing is so important, is because giving people tools is more important than giving them evidence, because it calls to mind Jesus. If you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day, but if you teach him to fish, you've given him the tools to sustain himself for life.
Absolutely.
And that's why I think it's so important. And I gotta say, I have so much empathy for Dean, because I think also it is a huge burden to carry this type of knowledge and to be ostracized and perhaps ridiculed over making assertions that people can easily dismiss as crazy or schizophrenic or whatever. But I don't think it is. I think that it is the burden of truth that he's carrying around, and that he's dedicated himself, as you can see from the work that he's done on his channel and otherwise, to disseminating to people that should know and would benefit from knowing, and perhaps could really achieve the goal that I think we all share, which is to protect the children from these literal demons.
Yeah.
So just, if I might share a few quotes that I tend to lean on that were like the driving force of this investigation for me. I've got 4, but I usually share 3. And it's: the mark of an educated mind is that who entertains a thought without accepting it. So we have a very open-minded audience here tonight, and I'm very grateful for that. I'm not asking people to take me at my word, though. What my goal was to give everybody a repeatable, testable process that you could go out and look and say, hey, I don't know if this person was on Epstein's flight logs or not. How can I tell? Well, are they doing phonetic reversal? Do they hide satanic images in the mirrors of their imagery? Do they use the color inversions frequently in the way that they're dressed in public appearances and things of that nature? These are things where, like, alone they may not mean much, but when you start compiling them and then you have these same patterns of behavior across so many different fields, it becomes irrefutable that there is some kind of religious intention behind these behaviors. The second quote, this comes from Kanye West, who I'm not very fond of anymore, but once upon a time. And he said, would you believe what you believed if you were the only one who believed it? Because that is something that every person who's ever had to dive the rabbit hole has had to come to terms with, because there are going to be people who disagree with you. And herd mentality is a very powerful manipulating force that they use to kind of forge a consensus that these things are crazy and that you're not meant to discuss them at any great length. And then the third quote comes from Nikola Tesla, and this one is, when mankind views supernatural phenomenon or non-physical phenomenon, I think were his words, beneath the scrutinizing lens of the scientific method, mankind will make more progress in 1 decade than all of human history before it. So what is the scientific method? It's making an observation, testing the hypothesis, presenting the results, and seeing if people can repeat the results, right? So to me, I think that all of these methods, these ciphers that I presented to people, do meet and qualify for that definition. And I think the only other one the other quote that I really lean on with this is, no great mind ever existed without a touch of madness. And I know that one might, not lend too much to my credibility, but it should be said. This is not everybody's going to be able to sit there and look at these things, because most people are living their own lives. They're trying to pursue what most people want out of life: a wife, a kids, a home, their own place, their own happiness. They're not considering what that happiness comes at the cost of, because it's not directly in front of them. And for me, when I found out about Pizzagate in 2015, I couldn't put it down anymore. I couldn't. It really impaired my ability to function on a normal level, right? Because it was just always about this. But to bring us into, if I can continue on this for a second.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to say, because I see Biscuits brought it up earlier, where there's a lot of channels that are getting inflated. They're getting put onto maybe the Rumble main page and stuff like that. I've seen that you've been doing this for a while and not gaining any traction yet. Some of the things you've said, because some of your passion that's coming out, we see and have known about this Epstein Island thing for how long now? It's going on almost a decade.
Yeah.
And nothing's been done about it. And now they're trying to hush it up. And the frustration is real. So when you talk about, the craziness or the madman or whatever that's in us, like, it is so frustrating trying to scream at the world and be like, look at this, pay attention, because we can fucking stop this. And they just keep going about that normal daily business like you're talking about. I see a lot of people doing X spaces nonstop. But in X spaces, you can't show on the screen like what we're doing here. And seeing faces kind of helps. It's a human thing to want to see a human face. But Dean doesn't have a camera right now. That's part of it. And if he wants to stay anonymous, that's great. But I think right now it's just kind of like not having a webcam. But what you're able still to show, you just don't have a webcam right now. But what you're able to show on this, in this presentation, and show these things is repeatable. People are going to be able to take what you're doing here. And some of it's fast. And the link to Dean's Sound4Sound Rumble page is down in the description. There's shorter videos there. There's longer videos there. He does a lot of different stuff. I binged a bunch of it yesterday and today, and you start getting more familiar, with the pinks and the greens and what they stand for, the white and the blue, the black and the gold. Those kinds of things will start making more sense, and the more you make sense of this, it's repeatable. You can go and show somebody. A lot of us have a hard time talking to our friends and our families about how to get them to at least be like, what is this? I mean, the fact that you can go to some of these places and go into a maze on Google Earth and you can't just go and do that anywhere. It's like, what the fuck are they doing there? There's things that Dean has on his older videos that they've now removed from Google Earth that he has as evidence, but no one's, he's not getting enough traction, or at least as far as the numbers are showing, because you could very well, Dean, be doing a lot more than you realize, and they are suppressing the shit out of you. That's how this game works with them, because they control a lot of this shit, if not everything, if you will. So what we're seeing here and what we're able to do on a presentation like this and show you, like he was saying, Dean's not saying take him at his word. Look at his methods, see what's repeatable, and do it yourself. I've started doing it. I played with it a little bit with these images that you're seeing behind Biscuits and I. It's repeatable. And so all I'm saying is thank you again, Dean. I'm going to let you just rip again, go wherever you'd like to go. But I appreciate this format and you being able to present this the way that you're doing it. Because it makes more sense in time, but it is making sense. And some of it's a little fast for some people. Good. Go back and watch it again, or slow it down, or pay attention, replay things. It's a video. That's the beauty of this whole thing. If you care about it enough, if you care about saving children and learning how this method works and learning the language of our enemy, because everybody in here wants a better world, and I believe that all of us in here want to save the kids, except for you FBI, CIA, Mossad motherfuckers, Secret Service motherfuckers can kiss our asses. We're going to fucking get this out there the best we can, no matter how hard you try to suppress us. And if you do suppress us, or if you do take out someone like Dean, we're going to know that you're trying to stop the truth from coming out. It's going to get that simple, and I'm hoping that the more people that see this, and it'll give you a layer of protection, Dean. Hopefully all of us to a certain degree, because that is the whole point of this, is to expand this. And that's not just about my channel or this Painfully Beautiful Productions or whatever you want to call it. We want to repeat this. We want more people talking about it. And I see people in the Q movement and some people out there online talking about, like, yes, we need to stop talking about Epstein. That's old news. Fuck that. It's just like 9/11's not old news. Fuck that. We're going to keep talking about this stuff. And anyways, so thank you, Dean. Go ahead.
I'm very grateful. And one of the things you mentioned where, like, a lot of us have a trouble talking to our family and friends about this. And today, because of our audience, we kind of just jumped right into Epstein to give people an idea. But we did call this the Da Vinci's Code. And one of the reasons why I said that this would be a good thing to title this is because when people go to talk about their friends and families, a lot of the time you need that segue. You need that soft topic to kind of bridge the gap, so to speak. So you're not just like going, oh, well, it's child trafficking, Satan worship, and people, they dismiss that, Right. But if you go, hey, do you know what the Da Vinci's Code is? People will start to take they'll be like, huh, I've heard of the Da Vinci's Code. So here we have some of Da Vinci's greatest works. And as you can see, I've mirrored them already, but this is the Mona Lisa. And when you introduce the Mona Lisa to her sisters, you'll note that this inkwell is light, this inkwell is dark. On the dark inkwell, you have the windy road on either side of this mountain, and there's a beam like a Kamehameha through the mountainside, and it leads to a totem of demons. And on the light side, you have this Eye of Providence just sitting in the sky here. Now, that's when everybody should know the Eye of Providence. It's very commonly used. The Last Supper is one I do frequently because, again, this is supposed to be about Jesus, but because to Luciferians, blasphemy is an act of religious devotion. They are bound to do blasphemy. It's very important to understand that. That's one of the reasons why they use sainthood, little Saint James, Saint Helena, Saint Peter and Saint Paul's lighthouse. It's because it's an act of blasphemy. But when you start mirroring it, you'll notice it's light and it's dark and it's a figure eight, because it's infinite worship. And when you zoom in on it, you get a totem of demons going up and down the mirror. There's a pyramid with an eyeball, right? It's because Leonardo da Vinci, the reason why they view him as the greatest artist that ever lived was because he was a Luciferian in a time where being a Luciferian was a death sentence. They would have put this man on a pyre if they knew what he was doing, but he was able to subterfuge himself from people who were actively looking for him, right? And every single one of these faces is meant to be an alchemical solve where you're finding things like you're supposed to cut up here and look for specific lines to cut out and change the image to find the hidden imagery. The symbols that we see here in this one on the bear, without getting into all the alchemical cuts, the arrows from Malak pointing in at themselves, the 8 in the shape of an hourglass, it's light and dark, the grid pattern for Saturn in the ceiling. These are all religiously significant, symbols to them. Ooh, sorry, that's a image of Malak that I was working on for a game. But when we look at the Vitruvian Man, or when we look at the Salvator Mundi, this is one most people know. If you cut the Salvator Mundi inside, why is one eye lighter, the other's darker? Because now it's light and dark. He's telling you ponder the orbs. And if you know even farther, when you flip this further and you start making them go up and down, it becomes a quadrigram in black and gold. He's got an infinite right here on his chest, right? You're going to start seeing the same symbols over and over again. And now it's eyeball, eyeball, mouth, and these are horns. So it's things like this where most people, if they don't know what these are, they wouldn't be aware of things like this being a face. But if you're aware of it, it changes the meaning of the image. Even though people know you're supposed to flip this image, this is one that people are pretty well aware of. When you get down to the Vitruvian Man, one eye is light, the other is dark, right? I did that one over here, I think. Yeah. So I didn't do the full flip, but if you look, now it changes the image where you've got like almost a totem of demons on his chest. And it's, again, the dark eyes versus the light eyes. And this comes back to like we talked about with the Baphomet, where the Baphomet is light on one side and dark on the other. So when you flip the image, it becomes solve or coagula. Now, this is the author of the Da Vinci Code, Dan Brown. He wrote another book called The Secret of Secrets. And The Secret of Secrets, the book cover is literally, this is a book you can read by its cover. It's half of a keyhole, and he's got Secret of Secrets, but this R is reversed. Because he's telling you to get the Secret of Secrets, to know the Da Vinci's Code, you have to know reflections. This is the alternative book cover to that book by Dan Brown. I'm going to see if I can just pull it up real quick. And the reason I bring this one up is because this is, again, it's astrology. This is Aleister Crowley taught alchemy, and it's the moon and the sun, right? And when you start understanding that this is not an accident, but this is rather an act of religious devotion, it becomes clear that this man didn't just become a famous author because he knew what he was talking about in storytelling. He became a famous author because he knew about the occult. So,
and he's probably a Freemason, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Most of these people are most certainly Freemasons. Now,
right, like Stephen King and all these assholes that just write book after book, which probably aren't them writing all of them. It's like Dean Koontz. These guys have an in, and they're creating the kind of stuff that the secret societies want out there. People's minds stuck in.
So one thing I would note about this formation, because people may not be familiar, right? But you're going to see right here to here and here to here, you have this like figure eight, but then you have another one here and here where it's like an X marks the spot. And the reason for this is because it's infinite worship. You can also see totems of faces if you look closely, but the clover formation in particular is a figure eight going this way and a figure eight going that way. And the reason they like it is because it's 3 and then it's 3 in the mirror to make a 33. As a matter of fact, an 8, right, is really 3, 3. And that's why they do that. It's knowing that these symbols can be read in very many different ways depending on the eyes of the beholder.
Right. It also looks like a butterfly to me.
Yes, that's one of the reasons that they love a butterfly. And in fact, one of the images that was deleted from East Crater, a location I'll get into a minute, had a bunch of monarch butterflies because black and orange becomes blue and white. But zeros next to each other make it infinite, and we'll get into that one in a minute. Before I move on from this being the Da Vinci's Code, this is something that I showed people. You may be able to see it. They're wearing green and pink. They're not just doing this to be tacky. They're doing this because, and I'm just gonna pull it up.
Right, and this is Beyonce and Jay-Z.
Yeah, this is Beyonce and Jay-Z from their song Ape Shit. Right, this is an example of how they use this in the broader day. And you can tell they put the Mona Lisa right there as an indicator to those in the know. And the song's length is 606, right? That's because it's about the reflection. So when we look at this image, you'll note her hair is in the front on one side. Her hair is in the back on the other. He's got dark on this side of his face. She's got dark on this side of her face, but it's light on this side. It's light on this side. They're telling you very, subtly that one, these colors are inversions of each other. And two, you're supposed to cut this image up. So I'm not going to do the right side cut because it's not as telling. But the left side cut for Jay-Z is obvious. And everybody's aware that Jay-Z is one of them, I think. This is like not a big surprise for people. But when you flip this image, now you have an all-seeing eye on his chest because he's an alchemist, right? When you continue to flip the portrait at itself, you get a demon in the painting, right? So this is, again, an act of anybody could go out here and repeat this process to see if they get the same results out of this image. It's just an example of like how the Illuminati really does use this in the broader day. Think about how many people have viewed this. 133,000 people. This video has been out for 7 years. Nobody's ever talked about the fact that Jay-Z signaled in the broader of the day that he's part of the Illuminati.
Right. I mean, it's probably been viewed tens of millions maybe hundreds of millions of times.
Yeah, and but again, it's one of those things where now you have this hourglass, this figure 8, and it's a demon right there. And for his wife, she does the same thing. When you take her and you cut her to the light side, right? It changes the image. And you'll also note now he's facing you directly. They're also kind of sitting at a slant, but when you put them like this, now they are looking you directly in the face, and now she's got her hair down on both sides, right? So when you complete the image, now you've got this cone head here with eye, and this is a mouth. And if you keep flipping it, it becomes almost like a butterfly and an hourglass. Because this is about time and sex, fertility to everlasting life. And again, you have the arrows of Moloch. It's not the best lineup, but it's the clover formation again because it's 2 8s. It's 8, 8, 8, 8, 8, 8. However they read that, it's going to be 88. So that's why I brought up this photo. I thought that would be a good example of like how they use the Mona Lisa, how they use Da Vinci to do it. A few others that I showed were like Eminem. He did Houdini's album recently.
Right. And Dean and I were talking, Biscuits had to go, but we stayed on for a little longer on the Zoom or the StreamYard conversation that we had. I want to do eventually a full episode of just on Eminem because I used to be a huge Eminem fan. Now, obviously, this is before I was awake, but growing up, like Slim Shady came out. I was hooked ever since then, and it was all through college and everything. The biggest artist of all time for me as far as the influence. And if the song came on, I would probably know the lyrics to a lot of the songs, especially since the Matthews freaking album came out, LP. Marshall
Marshall
Mathers. It's probably the one artist that I've focused on the most throughout a lot of years. And the way that he raps is one thing, because he's saying a lot that most people don't even catch. But then when you're talking about phonetic reversal, I think is what you call it, right?
Yes. Yeah, he actually got famous because of my name is what? My name is who? My name is. Yo, it's Eminem. Who's Eminem? It's Eminem. And that was like his entry audition to the cult.
Right. And so he already was doing the backwards phonetics.
So I'm not going to play the song right now, but I just want, as long as I got this up, I should have probably sent it over to you. I wrote this song in 2023. All right. In this song, I directly said that Houdini, who's what Eminem wanted to be. And then a year later, he came out with this song. So I've got a personal experience with this album, and I've gone through a lot of it. It's a very interesting track when you understand the phonetics. Abracadabra, right? Like it's there's a whole phonetic reversal to that, and I've explored a lot of that on my channel. But one thing I noted about this, and again, just to his came out in 2024, so I did it a year in advance. I predicted he was going to do this. This is, if you note, this is here, this little coffin with the arrow pointing down. That right. To them is an indicator marker that you're supposed to line that up with itself and point the arrows at themselves, right? If you look, this was a digital album. Why did he put the creases here in the album, where there's a crease along the center and a crease along the side? It's because it's telling you you're supposed to cut the image up. And now instead of it being E on his head, it's an 8. And he's got this little demon thing he's summoning with the Aether, right? Or if we go to the other side, you have
there's so many things with Eminem, because he comes from 8 Mile.
Yeah.
He said that he comes from 8 Mile in Detroit. So you got 8 Mile. When 8 Mile and the Eminem Show came out, which was the album after the Marshall Mathers LP, which was probably his biggest one ever, because it came out when he made that movie 8 Mile, and basically played himself, but in a fictional role to a certain extent. 8 Mile.
But it could also it's both 8 Mile, and it could also be viewed as the 8 for the infinite reference to the people who worship the occult. You know, so like it's again one of those things where in the know it could mean two different things to two different groups of people. To his fans, 8 is 8 Mile, but to the people who are drinking the blood of kids in pursuit of everlasting life, 8 is about infinite worship.
Right, and a lot of these characters, you'll learn about it, and some of them will kind of say certain things, you know, but it's the guys like Kanye West that's spilling the beans on all this stuff about how, you know, Kanye said that his mother was a satanic sacrifice. Well, a lot of these things have been broken down and talked about, but for Eminem, and because like I said, I was a huge fan of his best friend, Proof, who was part of his D12, and I've mentioned this on multiple podcasts not that long ago. It was basically their alter egos, and there was only 6 of them, but they called it the Dirty Dozen because they each had an alter ego. So then they would play the alter ego. Marshall Mathers kind of has a 3 thing going on, but his alter ego is Slim Shady. Slim Shady gets to say all the nasty things that Marshall Mathers can't necessarily say, but he's also Eminem. Proof ended up dying, I think, after 8 Mile and the Eminem Show came out.
I think it was 2006 or 2004.
Right, and I didn't obviously at the time think of this, but when I started learning about how satanic sacrifices work, how the cults work, how you sacrifice people in order to move up, I started thinking back. Proof, in my mind, I started thinking like, oh my gosh, I think it was a satanic sacrifice. I've never seen anybody break that down or talk about it. I'm not saying they have it, I just never have. And so when I talked to Dean the other day, I was just like, dude, we got to talk about this because Dean has seen it. We can break it down. And I know a lot of people on my channel might not be interested in that, but we're also trying to expand this and reach other people, especially maybe the younger generations. Now Eminem's kind of bridge between my generation and maybe a little bit of the youth still, because they're still putting him out there and milking him for everything that they can, like they do to all these celebrities. But some of the symbolism with these guys that have not been broken down, I'm excited to get into.
I'm looking forward to that myself. The main thing that I would say about Proof, because Proof, in my opinion, was one of those characters like Chester Bennington, who sold his soul, realized that he had made a mistake, and he was agitated under the circumstances of his death. Because one of the things, just like with Charlie Kirk, they will tell you in advance before they come for you. And they tell you by sending you a message in some form of another in phonetic reversal. When Proof got his message, he only got one album as a single album. And in that album, he wrote a song called Kurt Cobain. And Kurt Cobain was a reference to how a lot of people think Kurt Cobain was killed by his bandmates. I don't know much about that aspect of it, but I will tell you, in that song, he says a lot of different lines, like I wish I could take it back. I wish I could take it back, but it's too late. And he's talking about his devil deal pretty clearly in the broader day. He's talking about how the game and the fame game changed the whole friend group. And at the very end of the song, he says, and before I pull the trigger, Denon, I'm proud of you. And then it's like he shoots himself in the head or something. But if you listen to before I pull the trigger, Denon, I'm proud of you backwards, it's clear as day. I don't know if I can say hard R's on YouTube, but it's get off of Baphomet. And he was trying to tell them, basically, the people who were still in the industry, do not stay on this game because love killed me. And he says that like right at the end of the song, love killed me. And he's whispering about it into the microphone. I think it's interesting that now Diddy goes by Love on Twitter and he says, call me Love. And he wears that cheap red outfit. Or how Eminem said, love is evil. Spell it backwards. I'll show you. He picked that up from Proof. So without going too much into Eminem, because there's a lot that could go into that, but they do some people leave messages in their phonetics when they're not happy about the circumstances as a way of, flipping off the cult on their way out the door because they weren't happy with the circumstances of their death.
See, what I might want to do when we get to that kind of an episode is do it not on YouTube and do it on Rumble Substack, and then we can play the music, we can do all that, and it shouldn't be a big deal. YouTube has their algorithm set where they'll just flag it and kick it out anyway, so it won't matter. But I would love to get into that more, and I think we're going to get into reverse phonetic when it comes to John Lennon's son Sean, correct?
Well, I haven't done the phonetic reversal on that song particularly. I probably should because it's definitely there. But before I move off of this image, this is just another one where I want to show how they read things differently, right? So when I was investigating Keanu Reeves, because of his appearance in The Matrix 4 and things like that, I noticed one of his movie covers. This is how you can go and test Hollywood to see if they're doing this, right? You can take any actor, any Hollywood major film, and reflect the image of the movie poster at itself to see if it becomes an image, right? The only hint to me on this one was 12-12-08, because to them, 12 could be 1 + 2 is 3. 1 + 2 is 3, so it becomes 33-8 for the infinite. And I said, well, that's weird. And it was literally 1 + 2 is 3. And sure enough, there was an all-seeing eye right in the center of the image. A movie that got talked about a lot recently was Snake Eyes, where they had discussed how Charlie Kirk's death was advertised in this film. If you take the movie cover for Snake Eyes and you flip it at itself, sure enough, there's another one. And he's doing the hand sign that we all know is one that they enjoy.
And there's so many things we could get into, Dean. Just to touch on it briefly, you pretty much predicted what was going to happen at Charlie Kirk. You say a month in advance.
I did. I prayed when I was doing a video where I said Charlie Kirk twerks for the devil. I had basically gone through his images, his public photography, and I did this exact method of deciphering, where you get the demon totem, you get the all-seeing eye in a pyramid, right? And I found he was using the exact same methods of cipher communication as Jeffrey Epstein, the Finders, the Rothschilds, right? So if this is the same ciphered communication that he's using and he was authentically a Christian, and I say the same thing about Kanye West and a lot of other fake Christians, if you catch these people using these ciphered communications, calling themselves a Christian, but then not revealing these ciphered communications to you in a public manner, then that is an indication that they're not really who they claim to be. You know what I'm saying? So when Kanye West, right, he on his song he was on Alex Jones. He had Alex Jones on the song, right? And at the very end of it, near the end, he goes, "I forgot what fear is. I forgot what fear is. I forgot what fear is." Backwards, that is say your evil agabai, say your evil agabai, say your evil agabai. So there's an interesting implication to that. Unfortunately, again, I don't trust anything he says, because if he was really trying to end this cult, he would put his life on the line, reveal the things he knows about the cults, and just put it in the broader day, make a tweet about it and go, yeah, by the way, I've been doing phonetic reversal my whole career. You guys should probably figure that out. You know, but because he doesn't do that, I don't know if he's really being authentic, you know?
Right, but we don't. There's before you move away from that too much. There's something else I wanted to say, but like with those kinds of things, with like Kanye and whatnot, like I bet there are guys and artists that have done that, and they either take them out or they erase everything, or they write it off as a crazy spell, like with Britney Spears shaving her head, or Kanye going off the deep end, and they released like information between him and his like personal trainer talking about putting him back on heavy drugs and stuff like that. They could replace him. I don't know if you've gotten into the cloning stuff. I don't want to get into that on this one, but it comes up every once in a while about whether or not they actually have the ability to clone these guys and move parts of their consciousness into the clone, or however it works.
So
either way, like they have doubles, masks, they have different things they can do to replace them. What do you think about that?
So one of the things I would say is, the first time we saw Eminem after he did his album Recovery, where Not Afraid was on there, that was Not Afraid was Eminem telling the cult, I need a break. The first time we see him doing music after that, he's got the blonded out hair again, right? Kanye West. The first time we see Kanye West after he shut down that concert because he said, I didn't vote, but if I voted, I was going to vote for Trump, and his audience booed him, so he shut the concert down, right? And everybody threw up a tizzy, right? The first time we see him after that is at Trump Tower, and he's got his hair blonded out again, right? So that to me is concerning. It's one of those things where the blonded hair thing is about brainwashing, and it's about doing the MK Ultra program. And to me,
it's like their mind has been bleached or something.
Yes, that is basically what it's a reference to, is how they've bleached out their hair and they bleached out their head. And I'm not going to say necessarily, you know, where Kanye's head is at, but I think it's very interesting to me that all of the alt-right seems to be circling around apostate Christianity as like their major religion now. And as long as we're on the subject, Kanye West's new album, or his Jesus is King cover, we talked about this. Most people would not know, but again, if you look at it, it's 1331 because it's 33 with 11 bordering it, or it's 33 RPM because it's Freemasonry, and because when you invert it, it's blue and yellow to yellow and blue. So it's things like that where all of his album covers, even his newest ones, are still doing the same mirrored ciphers, the same inversion ciphers. So if he's not going to be forthright about that, you know, there's a reason for it. And if he's afraid, then can he really call himself a Christian if he's afraid of these people? I don't know.
Yeah.
That's up for people to discuss.
Right. And I don't trust Kanye one bit, and that's not because of Kanye. I don't even know if he has control of his own life. It's the same thing with Eminem. I don't know what it was. It the Marshall Mathers LP 2 that he came out with after Not
Yeah,
Afraid,
and
after
then
that
it was
album.
Rap God. Yeah, with Rap God, where he
Yes,
declared
and so
himself
it's like
God.
they put him right back into where, I mean, his first album was good, but his second album really like blew up, and then obviously the Eminem show is still his biggest
Yeah,
because of the 8 Mile and whatnot. But
yeah.
it's they put him back into their programming, or like who knows what they have. I have
And even if you look at the Rap God music video, they've got him all hooked up to a giant like snake computer that's programming him with specific things to say, or
right,
Monster, right, where he's writing. He does the symbolism in his songs all the time, where he's writing about, there's this demon under his bed that he has to make fun of, or he has to make friends with, and then constantly back and forth arguing with the demons in his head, or they've got himself in a cage and the demon comes down to get the papers from him that he's written the
yeah.
lyrics on, right? So he does.
Yeah, I think he even has in Coming Out of the Closet or something like that, where he even it says where he sold his soul.
Yeah,
Or
he said,
maybe
"I sold
it's-
my soul to the devil. I'll never get it back." And
Yep.
that was the whole thing with Not Afraid, was where he literally tried to go against the system in his own way for a period, but my opinion on that differs. There's two different ways you can look at it, because the lyrics are very much like "My open arms, the devil fell, my heart's still good, but thank yous once again," almost like he's walking away. But the honest truth of it, in my opinion, was that he needed a break. He needed a sabbatical after what he did to Proof. He was too guilt-ridden about it.
Right, that's what I think too, and that's why I think there was that break. Eminem, a lot of people probably not big into the rap game that are on this channel. That's fine, but Eminem is he was shown a lot in a picture where he was in a picture with a woman named, or that went by, what was it, Handler. It was
Chelsea Handler, C Handler, because it was for
Yes.
child handler. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So she was in a picture with a lot of these celebrities. She's kind of fallen off the map and disappeared. There was at one time people found her and she was like fat and overweight and looked completely different. Who knows what happened to her? But that's the thing. Like, why? How is it that we haven't gone anywhere and arrested any of these people, or anything came of this when it was right there?
He's even bragging about it on the new album with Houdini.
Right, where he's talking about flying in a jet to Epstein Island, right?
And he's talking about the kidnapping never did happen, as if like, all right, I've said it didn't happen, so now it didn't happen. You don't need to investigate it any farther.
Yeah, but it's like kind of an admission to guilt, because everybody will always say it didn't happen.
Yeah.
One more thing before you take up the snake eyes. Just one more thing.
Oh.
Because this hand thing that these guys do, Trump does this a lot. What the heck? Do you even know anything about that symbolism?
So, in my opinion, the reason that they do this is because it makes an arrow, and because when you reflect it at itself. Now, you're supposed to cut this image up probably for the hand with the ring on it alone. But when you flip it up at itself, it makes an hourglass. You see how it's making this hourglass out of the hands?
Gotcha.
That's probably one of the reasons that they do it. And it's the same thing where they do the triangle up for Zionism, right? It's because when you take the triangle from Zionism and you flip it at itself, it's going to make an hourglass.
Right. I've also heard them call it the tip of the spear. That way, like, I got caught up in the Q movement, white hat versus black hat, and all this stuff. You don't know what's real, psyop. There's different factions. Who knows if they play on each other? The white square versus the black square. But that one was said to be tip of the spear. It goes back to, I mean, JFK Jr. has been shown doing it all the time, and Trump and him were close. It's crazy how everything works.
It's one of those things where with the white hats versus the black hats and things like that, you have to remember, to the Freemasons, there is no white hat or black hat. They play both sides of the field.
That's what I found.
Even the Rothschilds, I think it was Lady Rothschild, I forget which one, but she said, if my sons didn't wish for war, there would be no war, right? It's her way of saying every war in the last 200, 300 years, they have conducted both the aggressive side and the victimized side. And this is seen in Ukraine with Russia, with Putin versus Zelensky. Putin took his inauguration in 2000 under a giant golden all-seeing eye. Zelensky was known as a cult member. He played piano with his penis. Like, there's a lot of that, 88 keys on a piano, right? it's there's a lot of references that most people aren't going to get on the surface level, but you could even go with the current conflict without Palestine and Israel, right? I've talked about how in one of the videos I showed you with the Eurovision contest from Madonna in 2019, at the end of that video, they're climbing up and down a staircase where you have half the crowd dressed in white, half the crowd dressed in black, and then the guys in black have an Israeli flag on their back, and the guys in white have a Palestinian flag on their back.
Let's see if we can find it here.
Yeah,
because I've shown this.
Yeah,
before.
right there.
Oh,
that it was right there. They were walking up the stair. Yeah, there.
There you go.
So this is them telling you directly that both of these sides are hand in hand. They're two sides of the same force. This video is so telling because she's singing to the crowd. Not everybody's coming to the future. Not everybody's learning from the past. Not everybody's coming to the future. Not everybody here is going to last. And she's pointing out at this crowd from the top of a Masonic staircase, the pillars of Boaz and Jachin on either side. She's doing mirror games all throughout the show. And then you have this happen where they walk up the staircase and they jump off together because Albert Pike, in his letter to Mazzini, wrote that in the Third World War, Islam and Israel, political Zionism, will destroy each other. All right? She advertised the destruction of the Statue of Liberty, and this happened in Israel. So our greatest ally didn't really stand up for us much when they let her put the Statue of Liberty being destroyed on the screen. She bragged about the burning of Notre Dame. They all had gas masks at certain points in the show with flower crowns and the X over the one eye because the X is a symbol to them of evolution onto godhood because they believe they can become God. Like the X-Men, right? Mutants, right? They think that by doing gene therapy and things like this, they can ascend.
Yeah, this was all back in 2019. This is foretold many years ago. Many people have tried to say the Albert Pike letter is debunked and it's not real, and yet it all seems to be coming to fruition with World War III being in the Middle East.
And again, the fact that Madonna to this day is signaling how years in advance, 3 years before October 7th, Madonna is telling you through this dance motion that Israel, who has previously been viewed as the victim of this engagement, will now be viewed as the victimizer of the engagement. And if you can stop for 1 second there, you see those curtains? Those curtains are what got me a call from my Fed because they've got half a demon on each of them.
What do you mean from your Fed?
Well, it's from I think everybody who is of interest to the Feds is like observed. I think
you're assigned Fed that's watching you.
My assigned Fed, because I tell you this, the second I flip that image, he calls.
So you flip the image of the curtains?
Yeah, if you take. Oh, here. Let me just pull it up real quick because you don't need the audio for this.
Right. Well, if you just stay away from the audio, we're good on YouTube, I think.
Yeah. So I'll go to Eurovision 2019. This is one of those shows where, yeah, right here. So if you look on the curtains up in the corner right here.
Okay.
She has hidden 2 demons. And all throughout the show, there are hypnotist spells circling around the projected images, right? And it's because they're doing mirror games. She also tells about how after Islam and Israel are gone, the Roman Catholic Church will unite the Orthodoxy and the Protestants into an apostate Christianity, which is exactly what Revelation reads too, for the record. But it's one of those things where, like, she's telling everybody this is a satanic hymn, and she's hiding it in the broader day where most people won't think about it because they're out here chanting Madonna in monk robes, trying to get her to come out. And when they finally summon her, she's standing atop the staircase. To stand atop the staircase to a Freemason is to be God. So that's what they're saying with this. I just want to show one other thing from this where when we look at it, You know, she's got these people with the gas mask. She's calling everybody in the audience naive, everybody who's watching it.
And this is 2019 before the pandemic, right?
Yes, this is 2 months before COVID broke. They're all in gas masks and flower crowns, and they're all dropping dead. But right here, she's walking around killing them. And right here, I want to tell you about love and loneliness. And then there's the woman Ishtar on both sides of the screen, right? And she reaches down, kind of like Adam and God, right? God reaches down to touch Adam. And then she pulls this person up to an equal standing with her on the staircase, which is, again, we're going to make you like God. And then he dies. And it's one of those things where this was such an obvious satanic hymn where she's blowing them all over, the flames spawn, and they start singing, not everyone is coming to the future. Not everyone's learning from the past. Not everyone can come into the future. Not everybody here is going to last. And she's singing this, pointing at them, and then she points up. This is, again, telling the audience in Israel that they are going to be sacrificed. You know what I mean? If I was in this audience, I would be concerned if somebody started singing, "Hey, guess what? You're not coming to the future." Like, what does that mean? That means they're going to kill you. And this is how they're revealing to you what they're going to do. And again, she depicted the Statue of Liberty with the arm being broken down, right? And you can kind of see there's mirrored imagery that keeps getting reflected in and out as the show goes on. But this is 100% satanic. Now, if I could bring us back to that Google Maps investigation and draw us out of this for 1 second.
Go for it, man.
There are a few locations on Google Maps. I said before, you may remember, that this is Cat Hill, Ascension Island, and that this is like Little St. James Part 2, right? Yep. So when we look at this, the first thing I would note, all of the locations here are doing the symbolism. Like Saints Bar, the Saints Members Club. This is like a members only club with the palm trees, but it's blue and white, black and yellow. The palm tree with the pink flowers with a pink light bulb. And this is, again, because to them, it's an act of blasphemy. It's an act of how sainthood to them is not like when we look, where is it? Grotto of Our Lady of Ascension. This is not a Catholic church talking about the Mother Mary. This is them worshiping Ishtar and talking about Our Lady of Ascension, meaning ascension to godhood. You'll find things like Pyramid Point Road. And when you follow Pyramid Point Road, it's strange how it leads out to this X. And if you follow it out to here, there's like this weird crater thing going on over here. I don't know what that is. I'm not going to lie. But as I continued up the coast, I found this. And this was one of those things. So we've talked about Matiosi and Level 900. We talked about Dog Rocks and how they did that half of a face gimmick. Likewise, right here, you have a great example of... Where is it? I've got so many of these open now. Just pull it up. So right here, you have another example of them doing this, where now you have an obelisk. This is important for people who know the Washington Monument measurements and things like that will probably be more familiar why this is dangerous. But this is an obelisk with a hole in it where they burn the corpses of people who they kill here. And one of the people who I was talking about in the beginning of our show tonight, David Miller, who posted that original child that I found at Level 900, he had been one of the videos he posted was of a character in a game called Roblox, which is about cubes, falling from a very high place. And while he was watching this video, he was stimulating himself sexually. And when the character hits the ground is when he climaxed. So when I called David Miller out on this location, he deleted his Google account. In my opinion, he ran because he realized I figured out what he had done. And I'm going to share that theory with you. So now,
who's David Miller?
He was the man who posted.
But I mean, is he like known? Is he like
No, he's just one of the people from level 900. So if I were to search up If You Ask Me, this is not the most articulate video, and I apologize, but the reason why I kept this video up is twofold. This is East Crater, and this photo is no longer here. They deleted this photo. This is the one I was talking about before with the butterflies and the skeleton. This is definitely like, it gives context to what goes on at a location like this.
Right. So it's one of the names of the people that was posting that had the photos at level 900.
Yes. And he had posted. Apologies.
No worries.
So this was the original child that I had found. It was a 9-second clip of just this smiling, like you can see how this would be viewed demonically, right? And the man who posted it was named David Miller, and he had posted things like piano, 88 keys. That was the video where he was masturbating. He posted about attacks on the Statue of Liberty, if we're drawing it back into Madonna's thing. And I've called the FBI about this, and I've tried to get people to pay attention to it, but I haven't heard back from them yet. So he deleted his account. I'm sure with enough pressure, Google could tell people what was being done here, but not from me. They need it from the government. They need it from actual people who have the authority to press that. Yeah. So
the FBI doesn't do shit, man.
No, they don't. They don't.
And everybody had all this hope that Cash and Dan Bongino were going to come in and they were going to arrest everybody for Epstein Island. And the first thing they did was shit on Epstein and shut it down. And it's been stupid ever since. I've had a situation where another guy that I bring on that kicks ass and has been fighting corruption for almost 2 decades now. They were threatening, some assholes were threatening and saying that he should be executed and yada yada. I actually called the FBI and turned that video in, and they thanked me for it, and nothing happened. They didn't do a fucking thing.
The only time I've ever seen anything come of an FBI investigation, and I will give credit where credit is due, because in my opinion, this had a hand in it. Once upon a time, when I was in Port Orange, Florida, there was a building by the name of Art House on A1A, right near Dunlawton. People who are familiar with the area would know that. But the building Art House had this triangle on it. And the triangle, people might know, is the pedophile code language. What the heck is this? Yeah, this one. For boy loving, this folding in triangle here.
Right.
Where you see this, right?
Yep.
So they had this in a big green sign on their building, and I wrote the FBI an email about it because when I called them to say, hey, are you aware that you're advertising for a children's summer camp using the same logo that the FBI recognizes boy loving? And if they had told me, oh, no, we didn't know. Sorry, maybe we'll change it. I would have been like, okay, whatever. Now you know. But what they said was, well, we called the FBI and we asked them for permission first. Like, what? If you know that this symbol is being associated with child loving, why would you not just pick a different logo? Why wouldn't you? But so after that, I wrote a thing about it and I called up the FBI. And when I came back 2 years later, that building was gone. That building was shut down. There was nothing left of Art House. And now Art House uses a grid pattern for their logo instead of this one. So, but to bring us back to this, I'm sorry, I kind of went on a rant there. This is the whole video from David Miller, where he's basically watching himself reliving the memory of pushing this child that he posted out of a plane onto this rock. And, one of the things I note is that in this area, it's going pretty fast, sorry. You can kind of see it from here. You see how there's red on the curb?
Mm-hmm.
It's just like I showed you and Biscuit when we were before the chat with the from the Royan district of Thailand. There's a whole.
Let's get into this shit.
Yeah, I'm not.
I want you to show some of that.
All right, so this is. Where do I even begin? All right, let me finish with this East Crater connection. Otherwise, people will get lost. All right, so.
Okay.
This location is a place of ritual sacrifice for the occult. I've shown you how it becomes an obelisk. When you follow north of this location, yet another grid pattern of Saturn occurs. And I will admit, it is easier to get into the labyrinth in the deep trenches of the ocean. I don't know if that's intentional or not, but there's another grid pattern in this location right near Cat Hill where this is again Saturn worship they're referencing, right north of that obelisk.
It would make sense they'd make it that way because most people wouldn't give a fuck about the water, so they wouldn't even be playing around in the water.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I said as well. Also, I think it's a matter of, well, they could claim it's ambiguous. It's not necessarily evidence.
Right.
But so when you look at this location, you'll note there is no longer that photo that I showed you at the beginning of this where this skeleton is here. That's no longer here, right? So what we have left is this image, which this one is a very telling image. This is the 14 parts of Osiris, like we had talked about earlier, and 38 because it's a reference about 3 eighths, the eights of the infinite, and how the more eights they can have, the better. But if we were to take this and post it at itself, just like we have with the rest of these images, and you reflect it, well, now you can see this is eye, this is the mouth. It's an 8-fingered demon that he's gang signing using the mirror. And above him, there's an angel, because to them, angels and demons are interchangeable beings.
Right, and it's an 88.
And it's another 88. And over here, now we're getting into where this is our second example of phonetic reversal. So what we have here is a grid pattern world. It's in red, white, and blue. This one's grid pattern on the cup. It's in red, white, and black. And this one's in blue and yellow because it's a color inversion with the green arrow fronds for the echoes of the infinite. So when we take, what does it mean to have been moosed, right? What does that mean? It doesn't mean anything because it's a sticker they had printed so that people who know it's a phonetic reversal would understand it. Can you play that Tum Nebui one that I...
Yep, I got it. Most people, like, when I look at these kinds of photos, I would just go beyond them because I wouldn't even think anything of it. I'd be like, that's weird. So check out this phonetic reversal here. I'm going to play it now.
You've been moosed. You've been moosed.
Sorry, I was a little cut off.
Tum Nebui. You've been moosed. Tum Nebui. You've been moosed.
So you can see how when you say it forward, it comes out as you've been moosed backward. And that's the key to deciphering a phonetic reversal. Can you make a proper translation? So what does it mean, Tum Nebui? Well, a tomb is a place of burial. But what does it mean to be Nebui? So when I went to Google Translate, Nebui was either tomb with a stone or tomb and stone. So tomb with a stone, and then we're talking about taking people out on planes and chucking them onto a stone and putting their bodies in the obelisk. You see what I'm saying? And after I called David Miller out on that, he deleted his Google Maps account. He's no longer, I can't find him. So, but to me, he deleted his account because I correctly identified that this is where he took a kid and that he took off with them and then chucked them out of the plane, and he was using that video game to relive the memory in his head, kind of like serial killers. Sometimes they relive the photos and things like that. So there's a lot of things like that on this island. And this island itself leads you to a whole nother maze that leads you out to St. Peter and St. Paul's Lighthouse in Brazil. But this is going to take us on a whole tangent. I would just advise that there's a lot of these locations out in the broader day where most people don't know what they're looking at, so they get away with this. Like they've deleted a lot of the photos, and this is one that I posted that I had caught them doing. He was doing the thinking man, and then these are the three faces of Janus. They're all smiling. This dude looks like Pan, which is like the god of pedophilia. He's emulating Pan with the way his hair is fixed. This guy's doing devil horns. And when you look, it's an hourglass, and he's telling you to think about it. And there's demon totems going up and down the waves. So it's one of those things where this is what's going on this island. And things like this, most people wouldn't understand that to them, this could be a reference to Vahanu, which comes from Saturn mythology in Hinduism, which is like the bird that Saturn rides in on, or Shani as they call him. But like I said, once you find one of these locations, like how did I start with this? I found Matiosi, I found level 900. So then what did I do? I went and I looked at the people who reviewed the location, and I said, where have they been? And then I found Kitty Pink House, right? And we've talked about how Kitty Pink House is at Mu 33 and what this means to them. So then I started looking through Kitty Pink House, and you would find like there's a lot of green and pink going on. These branches are meant to be reflected at themselves because they're all slants that these people like to play with.
Right. And green is everlasting life, and pink is sex magic.
It's sex and fertility. Yeah. So
sex and fertility.
Yeah. So when you see Hello Kitty here, right, it's an figure 8 for a bow tie. There's a green box and a pink box placed right next to each other. There's a black box with a yellow ring right below them. It's a reflective grid pattern on the floor, and the whole room is taken at a slant. You see what I'm saying? So this is an image of theirs, and I don't know who this is in the background necessarily, but it doesn't really matter when you have, again, this up here and the 8. When you have this too, is this someplace you would take your child for a birthday party? Would you advertise your business like this? You know what I'm saying? And she's winking. You got the pedophile swirls that I showed you from the FBI, right? All of these butterflies are in the shape of 8s or hourglasses, depending on the eyes of the beholder. And it's hearts because it's Ishtar, right? Now, I promised I wouldn't get into specific ones, so I'm not going to, but I would like to point out that the person who posted most of these photos, Amenul McCulloch, which sounds very close to Moloch. It's Muck-Cull. So if cull as in you're culling the kids, Loch, right. McCulloch. I think that this was them doing a play on Moloch. I can't prove that though. Right. But when you go down this location, and this is now everybody knows about Diddy, everybody knows about Epstein. The reason why this is so relevant to me is these kids are in Thailand. This is a poor country that doesn't have the financial means to really defend itself from these kinds of Freemasons who come out here with American taxpayer money, and then they traffic children in these neighborhoods for their low-ranking members. If you're a high-ranking member, you can go out and get to Cat Hill. You can go out to Jeffrey Epstein's island. But what about the low-ranking members? This is their neighborhood. This is where they go on vacation. Okay? So on this road, there's a lot of things to note, and this is one of the ways, if you're playing the game on Google Maps, you have to look for things like this. I'm not going to do all the puzzle solves right now. So over here, they're censoring on the bottom of this. I don't really see a license plate here, but it's where the license plate would be, so that kind of makes sense, right? Faces, license plates, those are normal places you would censor something, that you're not supposed to post without permission, right? Because you don't want to dox people. But
Right.
this is a sign. Why is the sign's face done here? And it's because when you move to here, if you look from this angle, it is not censored. And it's because you're supposed to, if you understand the game, you cut the image down the center, and then you have a shrine, and it changes the image. A lot of the things that they do, right? Like, why is this back tire censored? Because you're supposed to line the camera up and then cut the image. And you'll notice that this goes from thick to thin. So you're supposed to see, right here, right where this white block changes, you're supposed to cut the image right to here to get the full image. And they do hints like this all over the map. Things like this, where most people might say, okay, that's a bug of the camera, right? But this is a line that they're telling you to cut the image along because they're playing games with the wires. Now, I'm not going to get into all of these different image cuts here. I may do a few of them. But the main thing I want to show about this road is just like with Comet Ping Pong, people may remember Comet Ping Pong was not the only establishment on the street that had these pedophile logos, that had these symbols that they were using. It was like 3 or 4 different establishments on the same road. With this one, now you've got black and yellow. They painted the pipes blue because those are color inversions, right? Pink flower.
Yeah, you wouldn't commonly paint pipes blue, not that blue especially.
I mean, it's ambiguous. It's innocent enough, but the fact that it's a color inversion right on a yellow and black building, right? The black and white thing here, because they're telling Freemasons stop and look around. There's not really a need for a cross, for a crossing here. It's a one-way street, I'm pretty sure.
Right.
So,
and it's got the pine thing, which is evergreen.
Yeah, and there are photos of here where they've got like the adults in the pools with the kids, and this is where, in my opinion, if the kids behave while they are being, raped, they get to come and swim in the pool as a reward.
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt you. I just want to interject one thing. When you get into this type of application of the algorithm that you're talking about, in order to essentially look and find places that have been tagged in very obscure ways that only people who have a very deep understanding of how to spot those tags are going to be able to see it. I think this is where it starts to, people will look at the stuff that Dean does to album covers, et cetera, stuff that's ubiquitous, stuff that's put out on purpose. Like, in a way, that stuff is like a Rosetta Stone. It's like, here's the primer. Here's the tools that you need to understand in order to navigate in the world. Here's the legend to the map, right? But when you when you try to navigate with just a map and a legend and a compass, for instance, there's a lot of calculation that has to go into understanding where you are and how to get to where you're going. And that's obscured. That's not something that's readily apparent. When you look at someone that can read a map, you can't tell that they have all of that information in their brain to read the map. So
if I might, for 1 second, I see there's a conversation in the chat box about God tells us a lot of these tells in their symbolisms for us as well. And yes, they have to communicate secretly. Both of you are absolutely correct. There are karmic laws that these people are religiously bound to, that they believe in. They believe that they have to tell us these things, because if they tell us these things, they don't have to tell us them in an obvious manner. But if they tell us these things through predictive programming and otherwise, and then we don't do anything to stop them, that is religious and spiritual consent. So God...
Informed consent.
Yes, exactly. God will prevent them from harming us if they don't tell us what they're going to do in advance. But if we identify what they're doing in advance and tell them no, they cannot move forward. If they tell us and we don't do anything, it's considered we signed off on it because we told you. You guys didn't do nothing. We told you. And then their hands are clean of it. And that's why they do things like the cremation of care. I apologize. I wanted to catch that.
No, that's all right. And I agree with what you're saying. I want to make it clear that I think people are likely to look at what you're doing here with Google Maps and perhaps say that it's, well, this is kind of thin, this is a reach, this is not, this is not so obvious as the stuff with the album covers or the, the movie posters or the Madonna videos, etc. But those things are in your face, and they're meant to be the primer. They're the thing that's meant to give you consent, and they're the thing that's meant to give people that are, let's say, involved or a part of that system, a part of this exploitation of children, the tools that they need, if they've got what it takes to use those tools, to find these types of places so that they can participate in
that's exactly right. That's exactly right. It's the higher level members telling you directly, if you want to be where we are, if you want to be famous, right? There was that famous instance of the model who thought, I'm going to go to an Illuminati party and look at me. I'm going to be a leader of the world and I'm going to get to play the game, right? And then she got in there and she realized they were cannibalizing human meat, right? And she ran out of the stage. They're eating humans, she screamed, and then she was never really seen again, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah,
I don't even remember her name. I remember her name. I remember she was like in some Latin American country, but she went to an Illuminati party. She started shouting about it, and then the security came and picked her up, and they never saw her again. So never go to the free trial. Never take the free trial. Never go to the party.
Yeah, I mean, you got to keep in mind what they're covering up and how heinous
how they beat
it is.
people into it, and how they beat people into it.
And so it makes sense that the symbols, the clues, the path would be obscure. I mean, it's going to be a very thin thread that you follow to find these types of places by design. So I mean, it's easy to dismiss this stuff, but I encourage people to consider the gravity of what is underneath.
And the fact that Dean spends hours doing this, and we're going through a lot of it surface level. We called this, before we started filming, training wheels for everybody, because people need just little bits of this at a time. Because when you do get into this and start doing what Dean is doing, and he's showing you certain locations, look them up and search around. Think about the blues and the greens and the pinks and the golds and the blacks. These kinds of things, man, you'll start seeing them everywhere, and you'll start seeing they're there for a reason. You'll start seeing, holy crap, they really are. I mean, these people probably get bored all the freaking time, and these are the games that they get to play.
Yes,
they're pedo games. Fucking pedo games.
It's a big ha-ha to them.
Just because you have the Rosetta Stone doesn't mean that you're fluent in all of the language that are represented there.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of work that goes into extrapolating and applying that knowledge and practice. And I don't mean to interrupt you, Dean. I appreciate
that. I appreciate that. Absolutely. Because you're right. It's not like knowing that they do phonetic reversal is very different, but being able to understand and translate phonetic reversal, like it's, things like knowing that they do pine trees different than knowing that these two are shaped like this because it's about twin pine and they have two pines behind each of them for that reason as well. The cherubim, this is a reference to Lucifer being a cherubim. Or this druid tree with the face in the center of it, right? These are all things that most people aren't going to bat an eye at unless they know to look for it. Things like this in the window, knowing that this is blue and white and that they tinted this window so that you would cut this frame up and start flipping it at itself. Most people would just walk right by it and never even see it. So it's a little bit of like Sherlock Holmes, I say, and I'm not saying that to toot my own horn, but as a matter of like the power of observation and paying attention to the finer details and how these patterns start to occur. Now, this is a location that I have talked about so much on my channel that they straight up moved the location. They changed it so that it's no longer on this street with Kitty Pink House and Cottage Pine. But I have it over here. and this is Megamind. So the first thing we're going to note is this is the golden owl of Aeol. This is with a black cube, a Saturn on top of it. This is one they love using. The owl could be for Ishtar. The owl could be for Moloch. But because it's gold and because it's the black cube, I think this is about both Saturn and Ishtar. And MM for Master Masons. I found actually 3 different, I don't want to call them daycares because they're not, but they're like after school programs named Megaminds. And why do they all go about Megaminds? Not just because they're raising smart kids. It's because Megaminds, even the movie, is about Lam.
Well, also, Mega is the name of what was Permindex and became the Mega Group, which includes Les Wexner, who was Jeffrey Epstein's financier, they say.
Yes. Yes, but I've seen them use Megamind at 3 different... If you have kids out there, do not send your kids to after-school programs named Megamind. That's my opinion on it, because I've seen enough of them where it's concerning. And the reason why I say this is Lam from Aleister Crowley, maybe people are familiar with this, maybe they're not. This is an entity that Aleister Crowley, like from Ozzy Osbourne's Mr. Crowley, he says to have summoned this entity. Now, whether or not people believe that is one thing or another, but you'll note that this entity looks a lot like a gray alien. And that's because Aleister, the demon Lam, told him, today they call us angels and demons. Tomorrow they'll call us something else. Somebody put it like right here, where this is, again, it's about the changing public perception on these entities so that they can be prepared for a great deception. Aleister Crowley was an astrologer. Aleister Crowley was an alchemist. And Aleister Crowley was one of the main practitioners from the Order of Thelma, which we'll get into with the Jack Parsons song in a little bit, because he was a key player in all of that. But this entity is like the Archangel Gabriel to them. They flash cone heads all the time in their mirror symbolisms, but most people don't know what to look for, so they get away with it. To bring us back to this, though, when we look at some of the photos here, and I talked with Dorian before I brought this up because I didn't want to, bring this on his channel, but you have the elephants here. Yes, this is in Thailand. You would expect to see elephants, but to a Freemason, this is the parable of the blind man and the elephant, and it's them telling you that 2 different people looking at this image are going to draw 2 different conclusions. You have a black cube with a white cross on it. This is not them being Christian. This is them telling you they believe that Jesus Christ is in the void of Saturn, that he is still in death. This is Wordstorm, which is telling you they're playing games with the words. Now, when we look, it's the Masonic checkerboard, and it's going white, black, white, black. So it's, angles, right? When we look, when I first saw this, I read it as Bra Quest Boo, right? I didn't understand it. When I started understanding that they use B, the letter B, in place of a letter 8, like Shakespeare, to be or not to be, right? Could be read as 88 or not 88. And this is, to them, 8, Ra from Egyptian mythology, quest, on a Ra quest to become a god, W from Ishtar, W from Moloch, W from the Baphomet cut to the left, 800, which becomes, again, 88 or the infinite reference. As you continue down, this guy on his man boob has all Z instead of all C, because it's a play on the pronunciation. You have the Ferris wheel, which looks like an eyeball. The Big Ben is the timepiece. Could be a reference to the city of London. There's a black grid pattern here. This is a white grid pattern because they put the Eiffel Tower in silver. It's an obelisk, and it's also a grid pattern to them. It's the blue from in front of Epstein's temple when it's inverted from this red.
Is it also a phallus too?
Could be a phallus. A lot of, like, the Washington Monument, they say, is Lucifer's phallus because it's the shape of it and the measurements. Right. But again, on the board here, Pan is not like pots and pans. It's the god of pedophilia. He's wearing the colors of Ishtar and Saturn with this pink, purplish gold and the black and gold lettering here. And this guy's proximity to this, in my opinion, is an indication that this kid is being advertised in this photo. One egg to go, and if we think of like chicken loving or chicken nuggets or rotisserie chicken, one egg to go means that there's one egg that is not. If this is a grooming center and all the kids are their chickens, then there's one egg that's still in incubation that is not ready to service clients. That's what that means to them.
Before we go back to that one more time. Before I met you, I would have just looked at these photos and I'd be like, not interested, not interested. Then you look at the couch and it's striped black and white and it's mirrored. It's like you see that they have added so much stuff into these photos that seem just like they're just showing you that mega minds, these kids are like expanding their minds. They're becoming smarter. They're playing challenging games and, building their intelligence. And then you look at these pictures with this kind of a frame perspective and you're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
They're telling you something else. There's the surface level for the public, the sheeples, whatever you want to call. And then there's the illuminated.
And you can even see right here, I haven't noticed this before, but there's palm trees. The palm fronds in the back here.
That one is loaded.
Yeah.
Loaded.
And when you come down to the next one, right, it's the same thing. You have blue and white becomes black and yellow. This is the blue from in front of Epstein's temple, that from the red. They're doing God, dog here. This is them telling you in their own way that they use phonetic reversal as a common method of communication. Now, these may be phonetic reversals. I haven't tested them. I won't lie. They may not be. But this one in particular, he's not just bad at the game. He's doing this because this is a phonetic reversal. And as you keep going down, there's two more white cubes where we talk about like the Baphomet, Epstein's temple. There's a common the Freemason trace board. There's a common theme with the white cube to them because it's the cube of Saturn. This one has pink and green. This one has pink and blue on it because it becomes green and yellow. So it's a black cube with the reference to everlasting life and to the phallus of Osiris. Blue and pink is FBI recognized color codings for boy and girl loving. I have not heard of Jonathan Kleck personally. That is not somebody I'm familiar with.
Do you know about that person, Biscuits? I don't know who that is either. I feel like I've seen the name.
I could definitely look into it. But
interesting.
Just to finish my point on this image, though.
Go for it.
This guy's got the sigil of Lucifer here. This is just like the Google Play Store, except it's upside down. They've got this here to tell you that you're supposed to cut this image up like an alchemist would to make different imagery out of it. He's wearing a blue and yellow shirt because they're color inversions of each other. And again, it's a grid pattern on the world where this blue and pink is. Then we get to this one. Remember, Easter, East Star, Ishtar, the painting of the eggs. I've given you the context for this, so you know that this is about Ishtar worship. This isn't just innocent Easter bunny stuff, right? This is a ring of Saturn, and they're telling you, I think it's 12 kids. Yeah, they've got 12 kids that are all ages 8 and up at their hen house, in their ring, in their coup. And when you get to this, and again, in the coloration, it's blue and yellow, green, because the green and pink inversion, and the eggs, again, it's the one egg to go reference. This is another one that it's kind of grotesque, but all of this is grotesque. It's fast-paced word fun. They're telling you that this is their playing on words. Ages 8 to adult, ages 8 to adult, ages 8 to adult, and then one egg to go. One egg in incubation. So they're telling you here that the children they deal in are ages 8 and up. They're telling you like lightning Lucifer fell. They're telling you Dragonwood, because to most people they may think, oh, it's a game about like Dungeons and Dragons or something. To a Freemason, this is a reference to their wand. And a Freemason wears their apron in a specific location because a Freemason's wand is their phallus. So Dragon Wood is a reference to like morning wood, right? It's a reference to a pedophile's phallus. Godzilla, king of the reptiles. Godzilla, right? It's a reference to, you know, the reptilian reference and how they believe they can become God. David Spade during COVID had this weird video where he went on this rant about Godzilla, and either if you're with him, he either stomps you flat or he doesn't. And if he doesn't, then you're good. But if he does, then you're dead. And he was going on this whole ciphered communication about basically trying to tell people, don't come out of the cult, don't rat us out, all of that stuff. And you're right, the pedophile swirl is also on this box right up here. And it's in red and green because it's again, it's about the labyrinth, and it's a green for the snake. But then you have this guy, and this is him basically telling you, hey, if you have a problem while my kids are servicing you, this is who you come to complain to. And it's either into the union, into the unknown, into the unseen. I'm not sure. I can't see through the man. I'm not Superman. But we can tell based on this image that he's on a white grid pattern. He's standing in front of this reflective bag. And the flag at the top is white and blue because it becomes black and gold, right? And then you have, again, he's wearing a black and gold tie. So he's telling you that he works for the cult. And this is like probably the most damning location I found, one of the most damning locations I've found in my investigation over the last 6 months. And just because these kids are in Thailand, you know, doesn't mean they don't deserve to have somebody speak on their behalf. I don't care. It's American taxpayer money that is being used to fund stuff like this. And it's up to us to demand that these people are not allowed to continue doing this.
Right.
So a few things that I wanted to point out in this neighborhood, you're going to see pink and green, blue and yellow next to each other all the time. When you start looking around this area, just like, because again, I started with Matiosi, then I branched out to Kitty Pink House, and I said, let me look around. Originally, I just wanted to go out and see what was by Mu 33. And as I expanded out, it's like the whole Royang district of Thailand, or Rayong district of Thailand, however you say it. It's the whole district is full of these people doing ciphered images all in the broad day. Things like, you know, right here, 33 right next to 99, which could be 66, but it's 38, the area code, things like that. Like it's like with Jared Kushner when he bought that 666 location, I think it was on Central or something.
Right.
It's an act of religious devotion to them to buy up properties that do this. You'll notice things like this is just not right. This is wrong. And it could just be because the camera error, or it could be because they're leaving you puzzle hints to solve around here.
Right.
The smiling face upside down. I talked a little bit about how the smiling man is an emoji they use all the time. The black, I think this is a Greco-Roman pot of Saturn. It looks to be some kind of Hydra or, snake eating itself. I can't really tell from this angle, but it's black and gold next to blue and white, right?
Right. And White Wizard, I've literally been binging just in the last couple days of a lot of Dean's stuff on Sound4Sound on Rumble. His link is down below in the description. Wherever you find this video, it should be down in the description. Please go. You'll quickly start getting the greens and the pinks, the blues and the yellows, and the ways that they invert these colors and what they mean. And he's been just in this presentation alone. If you came in late, you go back and watch. It's just crazy. This whole district that he was showing us before this, when I'm looking at this, I'm like, it's everywhere here. It's like they made sure that it's known that this is where low-level pedo scum can come, and they'll get whatever their desire is.
Yes.
And it makes me sick.
So this location in particular, I showed a little bit earlier. I'm not going to do all the puzzle solves here. I have done them in the past, but this is a blue and pink checkerboard, and it's blue and pink because of masculine and feminine energy, and it's for boy and girl loving. They have this here, which is just, pandas and penguins with snowmen. Now, pandas is a reference to panda eyes, and this is, again, a very grotesque, but it's about when a child is sodomized, the blood vessels in their eyes are pressed against their face such that they leave permanent bruising and marking. And a lot of the children that I have discovered may not have that exaggerated panda eyes that you see in the more younger victims, but all of them have this like aged look in the bags of their eyes.
Right.
And it has to do with this. And it's black and white because they're Freemasons, and it's the dualities of good and evil. Over here, it's 8 cubes for 88. And as you know, there's a pipe that's not correctly cut. And it's things like that where it's censored where it shouldn't be. And then this is not censored. So it's telling you to cut from here to probably this green tape and use the markings on the wall, the cracks, to make a new image. As nutsy cuckoo as that sounds, that's why they do that. Now, this is an orb to ponder. People would probably be familiar with the orbs because people know the dot. But again, it's a green and pink bench, blue and yellow, black and white, orbs all over the place. This guy is in front of a massage parlor with a child. This may be his massage parlor. This may be his child. I can't say, but I do think it's very concerning that you have this shrine, the red and white out in front of it. And again, like the ladder, which is just conveniently placed because it could be they're doing work on it. You see the guys working there, but it could also be to a Freemason right next to these palm trees about the pursuit of everlasting life and how do you climb this ladder by having sex with that baby boy. And again, like green and pink right next to each other. You have blue and white, black and yellow, blue and yellow to tell you that these are all color inversions placed right next to each other in the broader day next to a shrine. You get the rings of Saturn. You get the butterflies, right? You get green and pink and blue and white, and you start seeing it again. Right near the pink house, which is just like Kitty Pink House. It's the same coloration. Suddenly you have this golden dragon here. And as you keep going, you have this 8-8, and right next to it, it's green and pink, right? And there's censorship spots right here where you're supposed to like cut the image, take a screenshot between those censorship markers to make a new image. They're indicators. Now, at the end of this, so road, crazy, there's like this giant censorship pattern, and there's a Unity Church. I've done those solves a bit. I'm not going to get into all of that, but you'll note the crescent down and the crescent up. This is not a Christian church. This is a satanic church posing as a Christian church so that they can take advantage of people who don't know any better. That is my current take based on their photography. And that's just one road. It's almost all of these little side streets have games like this. So as we come over here, just like in that video from David Miller, how I pointed out the sidewalk was labeled red, you'll note the curb is labeled red and white. This is just like in Epstein's temple. This is them telling you this is a labyrinth. You're following the labyrinth here. So across from Mu 33, right, directly across from Mu 33, you have a winking cow with 3 quadrigrams. Now, most people who haven't been told about the Baphomet horns touching would not be familiar that a 4-pointed star is a satanic symbol. It's one of the most commonly used symbols, actually, because they know people don't find it threatening the way they do a pentagram or a hexagram. Green and pink become color inversions. Black and yellow, blue and white, right? The red and white by the 15, because the 15 is a number to them. And I'll show you why I believe that in a minute. But if you look, index, right? That's almost like, what is an index? It's telling you that this is telling you how to play the game. Now, I argue that this is like a white snake shrine. It's kind of hard to see it here, but this is like, to me, a white snake shrine, which of course would be a reference to the Baphomet. And this, to me, I'll probably get in trouble with some of the people who are actual ranchers, but this to me looks like it was made to look almost like cow horns, and that this would almost look like a cow. That's a stretch, but that is my opinion on it, that it's right across from this for that reason.
And do you see any other of the curves painted the way that one is?
Yes. Yes. As you continue down here, you'll see it over here, right? And it starts,
Okay.
and you follow it along, right? It kind of stops here. Kind of
It's almost
stops
like
here.
they've created the district that you want to be in the most.
Yes. And when you look, again, right next to 28, because 28 could be read as 88, you have this white shrine with the pink and yellow, pink and green inversion, right? And as you keep going, now the red pattern picks up again. So this is what I want to show real quick. This is earlier in like 2022. If you look, this fence was green and it had orbs to ponder on it, right? And as you continued along, there were hints to tell you that this was part of the maze. Now it's 2024. They decided that that green painting was too obvious, so they changed it and they replaced it with a tall black man in a black and yellow quadrigram, because to most people, this black and white post doesn't mean anything. This is just a crosswalk sign to say, look out for pedestrians, right? But to a Freemason who is following this red labyrinth and knows, okay, they're telling me something's about to happen on the labyrinth, keep an eye out. Just like over here, this could be viewed as, you're pondering these orbs, red and white ladder. If you flip this up, it could be looked at as like a red and white ladder on its side. These could be the grid patterns in white, which become an inversion to black. And then as you keep going, you have the rings of Saturn here. The lions from Ishtar worship that we talked about earlier, like in front of Epstein's temple. And when... What the hell? You guys there?
Yeah, we're
I don't
here.
know what the heck just happened with that? Can you
Interesting.
guys see this still?
Oh yeah.
Because my
They
whole
might have
screen...
They might have just tapped into your feed there.
It was weird. I don't know. The whole screen went kind of black. But so what this is, if you can see it still, there's a woman, like a white idol back here, which to me, I think this is either Shiva or Ishtar. I don't really see the legs or the four arms for Shiva, which is why I lean towards it's Ishtar, because that lines up with the lion statue. But again, if you look, as we're following this red and white pattern here, then you see this, and this is like stop, and sure enough, the pattern doesn't continue anymore. So to the Freemasons walking this labyrinth, who are on vacation in the Royal District of Thailand to rape kids, they will see that and go, oh, I got to turn in here. And when they turn in here, you'll notice, one, this fence was one stretch of green, right? This is black and white, and it leads up to 888, right?
Wow.
So that's 38 in grid. It's 3 8s in grid patterns that they're using to signal that it looks innocent, because it could just be a solar panel to keep the light working. But to the Freemasons, it's something else. So we got 14. This is the corner of 14th, Nong Maha Soy 14. And this is, again, a reference to Osiris mythology. You have a heap.
There's 14 stripes on Epstein's temple here.
Yeah,
like we showed in the very beginning of this.
Exactly. And this green is a 6 in Hebrew. And it's in green because they know it's a color inversion about green and pink, which is sex and fertility unto everlasting life. And it's attached to a reflective ball because it's a mirror game. And this is a pizzeria. Now, I made the joke originally, like, what is a pizzeria doing in the Royal District of Thailand? Because I'm from New York. But
Right.
at the same time, like, we have to understand, C. Leo Pizza. This is not just Cleo Pizza. This is about CP and Leo, the lion, right? Because it's another reference to Ishtar. So when you continue down this road, you have the orb to ponder, and there's a furnace here, painted black on this, because this is a reference to Moloch and the furnace. As you look, this one stretch of green, it's kind of weird how on this same alleyway, there's a single stretch of pink wall. So I said, why don't we go take a look at that? And as I did, there's a green building with the rings of Saturn on the window. That was concerning to me. And when I got down here, I said, okay, so you got one stretch of pink with an orb to ponder. And I looked and I said, why the hell does Cleo Pizza need 2 pizzerias on the same road? That doesn't make sense.
Right.
So I looked and you go, okay, pink and green text because it's pink quadrigrams. We've talked about the 4-pointed star a lot. There's 3 black cubes there on the red mailbox. It's black and yellow sign. It's red and white for Saturn on the wall. And it's 3 by 5 is kind of hard to see there. But if you look, there's like a 3 and a 5 on the same side of that bracket. It's 5 here and 3 here. And it's pink and green for the flowers. The American flag to let the American Freemasons, hey, if you want to rape kids, if you watch a child porn, this is where you come to get it. And again, hourglass infinite in the windows, where most people would have no idea what that is. Quadrigrams in the windows, right? The ring for Saturn in basketball. This is one most people aren't going to know, so I won't get too much into it. But the thing about this one that I found interesting was this privacy bush is like a heart because of Ishtar worship. And just like that guy before that was censored on one side, it's because they want you to come to here and look and go 1, 2, 3, and you print the screen. You take the image from those 3 censorship marks, and then you go to Microsoft Paint, and you reflect it at itself. And when you do, sure enough, one, you get this like Doctor Strange robe thing going on here. But when you flip it up, you get an evil eye. And I'm sorry I didn't have this one prepped, but it becomes an X marks the spot with this infinite in the center of it, and it's a quadrigram, and it's pink because it's about the coloration. But now it's like a dark green, and it's that blue from in front of Epstein's temple. And if you were to keep going on this side, you get a face, and you get another quadrigram. You get like a whole totem thing going on. Now, this is a little bit harder to see for most, probably, because it's like an ink blot test. But this is like eye, this is a mouth, and then it's a cone head. That's an eye, and a mouth. And as you climb up the totem, you'll kind of see there's faces. This is an eye, this is an eye, this is like a goat nose, and then these are horns.
Right, I see a butterfly too.
Yeah, and they've and that's the whole thing. It's like an ink blot to them, and when you start seeing the logos, it becomes very easy to identify what they're actually doing here. So to me, the fact that, again, now you look at this, right? What did they do? They left you another eyeball shaped quadrigram, but this one, it's 33 because it's a 3 in the mirror that most people wouldn't know to look for. But it's, the eyeballs from here to here. And,
and
that's...
the indicators were those censored spots.
Yeah.
On the Google Earth.
Yeah, on Google Earth or Google Maps. If you see, like, this woman's face, maybe not, because you're supposed to censor faces. But why are they censoring here? Why are they censoring here? Why are they censoring here? I kept asking myself that because I kept seeing them all over the place. And I realized they're playing alchemy. And again, this elephant wearing the Jew cap is telling you that 2 different people looking at this image are going to draw 2 different conclusions.
Right.
And, I won't go down the road because there's children down the road, so I'm not going to get into all that. But when you go down all these different side roads, the number of times I have found them dropping hints like this, where, like, if we look up here, all right, let's see. You just check the wires. Maybe you find something. Maybe you don't. But if you don't look for it, you're most certainly not going to find it. So my whole thing about this is be vigilant, keep an open eye, and if you don't see it, don't force it because they're all over here. You just gotta, know where to look. So if
Right.
we
Look at all those lines that aren't broken. So when you find the broken lines, you're like, it don't need to be broken.
yeah, like right here, right? Like these don't line up.
Right.
These are an indicator to them that you're supposed to rotate the camera in a specific angle and cut along here, and you got to find where the other one is, probably like right here. See how there's one here? So when you cut from here, you bring it out and you bring it up, it's going to make religious symbols that are significant to these people, like eyeballs, quadrigrams, figure eights, things of that nature that most people wouldn't know what they are.
Right. It's like so, Ophelia's saying, like, look how many wires this place has. I mean, what the heck's with all these damn wires in a low income area?
And
What are
and
they? This is crazy. It seems like a hazard to have all this.
well, and to me, it's like, again, like I could understand them saying these are for the phone lines and everything else, but to say that like all of these camera accidents are just happening by like all of this in one little spot here, right? That doesn't make sense. And it's because they're using the shades of the clouds. They're using things like I always make the joke on my channel, old man screams at cloud, and it turns out it was the Illuminati, right? Because that's the joke. That's what it is. They're using things like that where they're telling you to cut in the cloud and cut up to make their images. Now, I showed this one before the show. This is Nangmas Soy 13. And this one I showed because, to me, this is where I found out 15 was a number for them. This is where I learned that it's not just horizontal flips, but also vertical flips as well. So when I first came down this road, I didn't really make much of it other than I knew that child traffickers were already in the area. So I was kind of being vigilant. And I noticed that this right here was strange to me because it reminded me of like the censorship pattern at Matiosi, where like it was almost like cut down the middle, right? Where if we went over to here, you have the satellite imagery and then you have this, right? So to me, it was almost like that where this was kind of cut down. And I was like, maybe it's nothing. But then I came to here and I said, oh no, that was something. Because if this whole wall is censored like this, why? What were they hiding on this wall? And so what I figured out was that they left specifically, they cut these ones off so you couldn't see them. And then it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it's a reference to the cube of Saturn. Because then it's 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's in a black cube. It's just like if you were to see the Bloods or the Crips tagging up LA, right, or wherever they operate. It's the same thing. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it does it. It reinforces it to let you know it's not a mistake. And as you keep going down, sure enough, at the end of the road, there's orbs to ponder, and then there's a Saturn's ring set up here.
Right.
So to me, that's not an accident that wherever we find them doing this, we find them doing the Saturn's ring and stuff. And I told you I could go on this entire. I've done this in District of Thailand hours and hours and hours because everything about it. Remember how it was a black and yellow man in a sign?
Right.
Right. Now it's a blue and white sign with a tall black man and a pyramid because these are color inversions. And it's on a blue and yellow wall with the black grid because the blue and yellow are color inversions. And this is like, why? Why is this up here? Because this is, again, about the black cube and it's the gold for the blue gilding. And there's a lot of things like this all over this area. Where the more you look, the more you will find. The whole place is painted up like a carnival. Like over here, right? Green. Can't see it from the side, but again, we're on black and white to red and white, so I don't know what the yellow and white means, I won't lie, but pink staircase, green pillars, blue and yellow court for the color inversion. The freaking exercise equipment is green, pink, blue, yellow. Like it, are these the only colors combinations that this town is aware of? No, it's because.
Yeah, it's like Freemasons own this entire thing, man.
And then when you get right here, there you have it. It's the arrows of the infinite that I took from that original image of Malak I showed you from the guy on Reddit. Because when you take this to them, it's the hourglass. It's not a great cut, but it's about the hourglass.
Just read that sign, the design privacy. I mean, my goodness, man.
And 2 times 4 is 8, right? And cottage pine, because this sign had to be right next to this sign to let you know it doesn't matter which direction you go. Freemasons own this whole district. That is my current take on that. Now, just again, for people who may not have been here earlier, when you flip these arrows at themselves, it makes an hourglass in black and yellow. And that's what, and again, it makes the quadrigram when they're pointing away from each other, or the hourglass for Saturn when they point at each other. So this is like, again, this is a whole rabbit hole. If I had an army of people who actually understood the ciphers and who were out investigating with these ciphers, we could shut down Freemason. I've got enough evidence to get every single Freemason lodge in the United States shut down, legitimately labeled as terrorist organizations who traffic children to Jeffrey Epstein. But in order to get to that point, people would have to like understand this evidence so that they can then demand answers of it. I'm just trying to think of if there's anything else I want to highlight here. I would like to show one more photo from here.
Okay.
This is the Cape Romano Dome House in in Florida. And this is one of those locations they have edited quite frequently because I keep talking about it and they aren't comfortable. But they've changed the images up here because they used to show kids in cages and stuff. They don't so much anymore.
They used to show the kids in cages.
And this is, again, yes. Well, what it was is like they were in a fenced-off area, and then there was a hose where they would get their water and stuff. So they were like in a caged-off area. And this is a reference to Annabelle. They added this one actually after I went into... people who are familiar with 4chan may know the paranormal board /X. When I first broke this, I wasn't getting any traction on /Pulse, so I went to /X to see if anybody out there might be familiar with any of this stuff. And somebody posted about Annabelle, and I went through the effort of showing that this is actually like they say this is the doll that went around killing people and murdering people. It was demonically possessed, right? When you actually look at it, they literally are doing demon worship right next to it. So things like that, and they took it at a slant, it's not facing you directly, right? This is a hint to them. Now this is the kid I want to show if I can just find the reviews. So the reason I show this image is because he posted it twice. This man did this to himself. I didn't add this. And this guy used to have some like octopus-looking ink blot that was his profile picture, but I called him out on it because it had red eyes and it was obvious demon worship, and then he changed it. But this is an eyeball for the evil eye. This kid's got a begrudging smile on because his best bet is to do what these people want and become one of them, unfortunately, because he doesn't think anybody's coming to save him. But they did this image like this for 2 reasons. The clock is mirrored. So immediately, this is a reference to the mirror game and how this is a reflected image you're looking at because you're supposed to connect the clock to make an infinite. So it becomes a figure 8, right?
Right.
And then he posted it a second time because this is an exposure game. So now this is them telling you exposure gimmicks are something they do. They made the image lighter so that this part of the arrow would be indicated. And to most people, this arrow won't mean anything. But to people who are familiar with the conversation we just had about Malak and the arrows of the infinite, that becomes a lot different. And if you were ever interested in investigating this at any great length, this is a Freemason website, as far as I'm aware. Pine Tools, right?
Right.
almost all of the puzzle solves that they use can be found on this image on this website. So if you're looking to change brightness, change contrast, change the exposure, adjusting the gamma, all of that are things that they do using this website. And it's
just free.
This one, yeah, is all free. This one's definitely all free. I've had it crash a few times, but it's been reliable so far for what I've been using it for.
You think they put it out there as a tool for these pedos to play this game?
I do. That's my current take on it. I have no proof of that, but based on just how many of their puzzles are on that website and the fact that they called it Pine Tools instead of like, I don't know, something else tools, it's because it's like Cottage Pine. It's a reference for them. So, these are all in the Royang district of Thailand. The only place that I would say that I haven't shown, this is in Thailand. It's not in the same district, I don't think. Let's see. Yeah, Wasanok. So this is the location, and if you look, this is a literal temple to Shani. So when we talk about Saturn worship and Shani worship and Nephilim worship, worshiping giants, right? Why do they prey on children? Because it makes them feel like the Nephilim, like they are the giants. Okay. This is Shani over here in the corner. That is the Hindu version of Saturn. These are Nephilim, masculine and feminine, and they are preparing cannibalism. And you have these animal-human hybrids circling around, dancing around, praying around the Nephilim. This is all kinds of like it was wrong when the Roman Colosseum put up that statue of Moloch with papal Rome. It is equally as wrong that this temple exists at all. This is something that people shouldn't be praying to. I don't care if people call me bigoted. This is talking about cannibalism, slavery, ritual human sacrifice of children, just all kinds of nasty things. And all of these people, when you start following them, you will find things like this, right? This could be a Buddha, but because all of these chickens are here, it could also be about boy loving with a giant having sex with younger kids, right?
Right.
This green and pink elephant to Hindus or to people who live in Thailand, that might not be anything nefarious, but to a Freemason, these are green and pink inversions, and they're telling you that it's about sex, magic, into everlasting life. And there's a crescent on one side of him, a snake on one side of him, but not the other, because you're probably supposed to cut this image down the center and reflect it at itself to make it so he has two palm trees totems. I wouldn't be surprised. I haven't done that one before. But when you look through a place like this kind of stuff is the kinds of things where like this is there's no arguing what this is being advertised here, right? Things like this are not normal. Here they even put this branch in front of his eye so that it would be the one eye, the evil eye, so you would know to reflect the image as a Freemason. And what is somebody, I think this is Russian, I could be wrong, but what is somebody from Russia doing in the Royang district of Thailand at this temple? You know, it's concerning. There's not many Hindus as far as I'm aware in Russia. This could be a reference to Janus with the three faces. Right?
I mentioned this to you the other day, Dean, whenever you were showing us the pictures of this previously. I saw this place on a TV show called Travels with My Father with this terrible comedian called Jack Whitehall, who's not funny at all. But he toured this place on an episode of that show. And he and his father on that same episode, I think previously had gotten a little doll, like a, weirdly, it's when I saw this, I was like, wow. And it's supposed to be a temple, a Buddhist temple, I guess. And the monk that they met that gave them a tour was a British guy from the UK.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, which I thought, man, it's weird. This place is weird. And then when you were showing me these pictures, it's like one of those things where the dots get connected and you just go, man, because Jack Whitehall's father was a talent agent in the UK. You know,
Oh shit.
yeah,
That's exactly how it goes too. But I
yeah.
mean, look at shit like this. Like, what the hell
Right.
is this? Why does this need to exist in the year 2025? Right? So, people who frequent temples like this are rightfully suspect. This is not normal. This is abnormal behavior. And I'm going to be the one to define what's normal here because, I think most people would agree with me that this is it's not a well frequented
Well, I
thing.
certainly would be very suspicious of someone that doesn't agree with you.
Yeah,
It's a strange place, that's for sure.
so one of the things I always bring up to connect to this, this right here, this pig being looks like it came right out of Tony Podesta's art collection. And I'm gonna bring that up if y'all don't mind, just to show people because I think it's an important
Might be a
aspect.
good thing to start to wrap up on too, because it connects into all the Epstein stuff that started getting released
Yeah,
with Pizzagate and Comet Ping Pong and all that.
absolutely, and we'll circle it
Because
around.
we're gonna do some. We're definitely gonna do some more shows. Some of this is very heavy. Some people are already a little.
It's a
This
lot of
it's
information, and
it's a
I'm
lot of
kind of just
information. And no, it's all been good, and this is important. This is the tougher stuff, but this is the stuff that I got into this for. Like I said in the beginning, I don't want people to forget this. And if you get on to Dean's channel, he has some where he's expressing himself, and he's pretty pissed off. And I do that sometimes on my channel because I am pissed off that we cannot ignite enough people to want to engage in this. And I mean, exposing it is one thing, but to learn the tools and to teach people and to get some righteous anger going and figure out what we can fucking do to stop this shit. I don't know. I don't know what else to do. I don't know why you would just sit there and not want to do something about this. That's what I've never understood is that there's so many people that are being pacified and all kinds of stuff. But you see disgusting shit like this.
yeah.
And there's somebody in the chat that's saying like, "Oh, it's just art depicting something that happened in the past." No, this shit is fucking going on right now, and they're ritualizing it. They're worshiping it. They want it to be something that more people participate in. Stop foo-fooing it. This is Satanism. This is evil that we're supposed to be fighting and getting rid of. In some way, sure, documenting it so people can know what happened, but not glorifying it, not going there and worshiping it.
Yeah, that's exactly. And that's why I said, like, I don't like it when the Roman Catholic Church puts up Moloch in the Colosseum because we don't need to make a giant golden statue of Moloch just to describe who Moloch was or what he did, right? But this is like, again, white to black, and it's got kids in the cages, and you could say that this is just a reference to the Krampus, but again, he labeled it in the blue and yellow inversion to let you know as a Freemason that this is a satanic image to cut up.
Right.
Things,
If you're foo-fooing this, then you're just normalizing it, and therefore we get nowhere. We need if you want to say that this is art, this is documentation, or that this is something for record keeping, then you need the people that are displaying this to give the right kind of description of what this is about. I mean, like the images that we just looked at a little bit earlier, where people are literally being boiled in a fucking pot and stabbed with spears. I mean, I hope that people can be fucking understanding that right next to that is a fucking temple where people are still worshiping. No, don't fucking worship that shit.
yeah, exactly.
Even if you want to, it shouldn't be publicly fucking displayed where children have to endure and see this kind of stuff. And it become normalized, and then they get sucked into this shit with all these sickos.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and that is one of the reasons why it's to them. It's we in better ages past, like I said with the Da Vinci Code, right? Leonardo da Vinci is one of their favorites because he was a Luciferian who hid in the time where if that came out, he was going to be put on a pyre. If Lil Nas X gave Satan a lap dance in a music video in the time that Leonardo da Vinci was a painter, he would get put on a pyre, right? They're doing it as a way to mock God, to say, look, we can put it right out in the public and there's nobody's going to stop us. And this
Right.
one, again, like this, what is this supposed to represent? Why is there a peacock here? Most people won't be familiar with this, but this is a reference to Hera. Hera had a giant called Argus. Argus had 100 eyes. The 100 eyes of Argus, when he died, Hera took them, the queen of the goddess, the queens of the gods, right? Because they worship Ishtar. They believe that God is really a woman. And this is because they worship Hera, Venus, Ishtar. It's a reference to that mythos, the eyeball mythology. So when you see things like the peacock, understand that like maybe on MSNBC, people could argue that it's just, one thing or another. But when it's on an image like this is most certainly a reference to Hera mythos. And it's telling you who Tony Podesta worships in terms of why he does the things he does. When you see images like this with these red shoes and these kids, most of this was done by Anderson Cooper's mom, right? Like when they do the red shoe parties, or with Nadia Wilson at the Cape Romano Dome House, right? How I pointed out in that Stray Kids photo, they were wearing red shoes. It's all connected because to most people, that's just red sneakers, whatever. But to them, it means something a lot more nefarious. So if you haven't seen this art collection, this was all disclosed during his divorce proceedings, from my understanding. And it's one of those things where you have
That's Jeffrey Dahmer, because Jeffrey Dahmer used to decapitate the bodies and put them like that, right?
Yes, and then he replicated it and did. And I personally, I wouldn't be surprised if this was a real victim that he just had molded in gold. I wouldn't be surprised.
Right, exactly. It's like shit like that, where why these motherfuckers haven't been investigated. I mean, obviously I know why, but the reason that we don't have enough outrage to call them on this shit. I mean, I thought we had a lot of momentum, and then a lot of the psyops came in and made people think the magic white hats are coming to fucking save the day. So don't worry, it's all being taken care of. While this proliferates and all these motherfuckers like Podesta and Marina Abramovich and all these motherfuckers continue to just live their best lives. It's fucking pissing me off, and we got to figure out what we're going to do about it is I guess the point of it. And I don't know if there is anything we can do about it because they've gamed everything. However, I'm going to go down in history, at least in these little fucking videos that reach a small, tiny fragment of the fucking population. It's going to be fucking known that I at least fucking said something and did something.
So the way I look at it is, we're in the fight for our lives, for the lives of our children, for the future of mankind. That is the scale of the war that's being waged here, and it is most certainly spiritual warfare. So how is spiritual warfare waged? And understanding that this is religious war changes the context of the engagement entirely. Because when they can no longer say, oh, well, we're just atheists, we don't actually believe in this stuff, we're just trying to trigger the Christians. When they can't get away with things like that anymore, it becomes a lot more readily available that people aren't going to put up with it. So what I tell people is, there's a story in the Bible about a very famous young boy who took out a giant with nothing but a sling and a millstone. Never stop throwing punches. Never stop fighting back. Even when you think that you are outnumbered, when you're outmatched, when you've got nothing but these videos, let these videos be your weapon. Let this knowledge be your tool, and let God guide your hand. Because you would be surprised how much a difference a single stone can make. And that's why I don't let them intimidate me, even when they got the Secret Service showing up at my house telling me they don't like the kinds of things I'm posting on the internet. I'm not worried about it because I know, and I'm not going to get into, you can view my channel. I'm very outwardly vocal about it. I promise I wouldn't say nothing about it, but there's going to come a time and point in this country where people have to make a determination. And that determination pertains to a specific amendment. I guess that's where I will leave it for the sake of not putting Dorian's channels at risk.
Let me interject one more thing there, because I understand what you're saying, and I do empathize with you. I'll tell you that, ambiguity is where this stuff hides, but the reality is that it's a binary system. I mean, it is good versus evil, and I would say good people want a system of governance and civilization that incentivizes nurturing children taking care of them, and then passing the civilization on to them. And evil incentivizes exploiting children and hurting them. And you've got to pick one or the other. You want one of those systems or the other. And frankly, we need to demand a system, because these people have built systems to exploit children. And we need to demand the implementation of systems of government that consume these people, because these people hurt kids and they also commit treason. And
exactly.
Treason, if we remedied treason, we would remedy a whole lot of child trafficking at the same time with the same energy, with the same effort, because the traitors are the people that are willing to do treason are doing a crime for which the penalty is death. And people that are willing to do crimes for which the penalty is death are probably going to be perfectly willing to hurt kids and perfectly willing to operate systems like the ones that Dean is trying to expose the mechanisms for finding in the world. So we're all in the same fight. And this is the type of knowledge that people need to arm themselves with so that they can make appropriate demands. And it is why I have said since 2020 that I cannot participate without public executions. And I won't.
And it's one of those things where most good people don't have the inclination to be violent. You don't want to think in those terms. Unfortunately, Bill Cooper, I think he said it very, very wisely. These kinds of people, you cannot make peace with them because they will never love you. They will only ever want to destroy you and your family. You can't make peace with people like this, because to do so would be your destruction. And
it's a game of death.
Yeah, when it comes down to it, it is going to be us or them. That's what it comes down to. They have already tried to mass murder the population using things like the COVID vaccines, right? So you can see them trying to slowly kill people off without ever drawing ire from the public who they are afraid of. And they like to tell themselves, oh, well, we just don't tell the public because we have all this secret knowledge and we're better than the public. And but the truth of the matter is they are deadly afraid of the public, because they know full fucking well, pardon the French, that if this were to get exposed, if people were to come to a general understanding that even if they don't believe in religion, even if you're an atheist, you can understand that maybe not everybody in the world is an atheist, and that maybe not everybody in the world is a Christian. Not everybody in the world is a Muslim or a Jew. Sometimes people are pagan. Sometimes people are other things beyond paganism, and you fall into Satanism. When you start figuring out the mindset of your enemy, and you come to the determination that not everybody's going to think the same way you do, it becomes very clear that these people are not bound to tell the truth. They'll sit there and they'll lie through their teeth as long as we let them get away with it. That's why we need to start learning how they are lying to us, so that they can no longer say, well, I'm going to put this politician in front of you and we're going to tell you that he's going to do all the things that you're waiting for him to do. But then 10 years down the road, we still don't have answers about a very obvious child trafficking case that was going on. Now, the general consensus about Jeffrey Epstein is that it was all 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds. They were on the cusp of adulthood, right? They're not thinking about children anymore at that point, because the media has convinced them, over as they kicked the can down the road and obfuscated the facts of the matter, that this was all just, women trying to hang out with celebrities. Had nothing to do with Satanism.
Right.
They don't talk about the cannibalism. They don't talk about the gods these people worship, like you pointed out, and that you can see in the symbolism, as clear as day. And when you line up all the stuff that Dean did throughout this whole entire presentation, it goes so much fucking deeper than this, and it's ingrained in everything. And they control this internet. They control all this media space to a high degree. However, the majority of people still have the majority. And the majority of people, if they actually understood that no one's coming to save the day, that it's up to us, it's on our shoulders, coming together and figuring this shit out.
Yeah.
We still have the majority. We can still do something. Now, what we can do, I don't know, because you start talking about other people that I have on, like Sabrina Wallace, talk about the abilities that they have. Well, I would rather them have to stop us, have to fucking stop us, than allow them to just continue to play their hourglass game and to do this slowly but surely into complete domination and control.
Now,
While genociding people, that is going on right fucking now, horribly.
Yeah, in Gaza and in other places as well.
Right.
So I would tell everybody as a Christian, these people hold no power over you unless you let them have that authority over you. Because if you worship Jesus Christ, your God is stronger than their God 1,000,000 times over. That is the truth of the matter. And they are afraid of Jesus. They're afraid of God. They're trying to wage war on God in this subterfuge, subliminal, subversive manner because they know in a direct confrontation, if they have to address the facts of the matter in the light of day, they lose. And that's what it comes down to.
Well, let's get them there. That's what I say.
Yeah.
Let's bring it all out.
So I hope to everybody who's listening, if I could just say, I hope that this has been educational. I hope that this has been informative and that you learned something today. If you ever have any questions, you can always drop a comment on any of my videos. I am happy to try to expand on the thoughts that I have displayed here today. And, it's one of those things where we can win this war. We can absolutely take this information war and turn it on its head. Because once you understand these ciphers, once you understand the way they are lying to you, it becomes so readily available to I say it all the time, it's obvious. Once you understand it, it's obvious. But until you understand it, it is like looking in a mirage.
Yeah, well, you did a great job, Dean. Again, I find what you do compelling, and what you put together tonight was absolutely brilliant, and I really appreciate it.
I'm very grateful for the opportunity to speak, and thank you both for having me on here, for putting me in touch with Dorian, and Dorian for having me on. I really, I've called the FBI, I've called the CIA, I've called the Secret Service. I've called these people up and tried to get them to look into this. So when it's private investigators and private reporters that are taking the time to do the government's job, right, it really begs the question, why the hell are we still paying taxes to these people?
Well, I'm not, but yeah, I understand.
To those of us who get it taken out of our paycheck before we even see it, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
But, yeah, people really appreciated you, Dean, and again, it was my honor to host this, and I look forward to the other shows that we have. Not that we have fully planned, but the one that I wanted to do that we talked about earlier, but we could go on and on. You're a wealth of knowledge, and it was my honor to allow more people to have access to you. Please use the links down below. I have your Rumble in there. Was there any other links that you wanted to share before we close out?
I'm Polaris Pack on Twitter, but I'm usually suspended because I constantly am advocating certain things against certain government officials. So,
all right,
all
right,
Rumble's
cool.
Probably the safest spot.
All right, well, we'll stick with Rumble, but that is definitely down in the description, so use that. Thanks again, Dean.
Thank you very
much. We'll get you back on here. We'll discuss, some future shows that we'll do. And thanks, Biscuits, for bringing Dean to my attention. Anytime Biscuits is, I don't know if you've really ever recommended somebody this strongly or done this, but whenever Biscuits says something, I'm like, I pay attention. And this worked out in a way where I'm freaking stoked, because this is right in line with what I wanted this channel to be about: fighting the human trafficking, the cannibalism, the satanic pedophilia, and the symbolism and all that shit that is, like Dean pointed out, is so readily visually there for us to say we do not consent. And how about this? And we're gonna find ways to combat it. So, anyways, thank you all for being here. Did either of you have anything else to say before we close the show?
Just one thing.
Yep.
The first step is a mass exposure. The first step is getting these ciphers into the hands of the public and exposing everything. Because once they're exposed to the light of the day, there is no place for them to hide any longer. And once they can no longer hide, we force the issue. That's how I'll put it. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks, Dorian. I appreciate you, which you know, I love you, brother. And Dean, likewise, I appreciate you and everybody who showed up to check this out and everybody who cares. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, everybody. And God bless you. And until next time, give this a thumbs up, share it out wherever you can, and get the word out. We'll do some more shows. But thanks for being here. God bless. And we'll catch you on the next one.
Thank you.
Peace.